Hey, Stace. I can't hear you, Walt.
Might help if I unmute my mic, huh? Okay, anyway, being an informational meeting, we have no formalities that we need to do at this point, so we're just going to open the meeting for discussion. And the item is talking about the 4th of July. So with that, somebody wants to start with a question or a statement. If you have something, if you raise your hand or let me know so I can identify you. I should let you know that if somebody is long-winded or if they become not very polite, I will mute you. And if it continues, then I can actually excuse you from the meeting. So we just a reminder that everybody needs to stay civil and stay on topic. Okay? Anybody have a question first? Let's get started.
Hey, Walt, I've got a question.
Okay.
How did we come to the conclusion to cancel it completely? And are we considering having some events for the town that are within the CDC guidelines?
Okay, as far as canceling it completely, I don't think that was the decision that was made. It was decided not to have the 4th of July, but there's nothing saying that once this is all relaxed, that we couldn't have some kind of activity later in the year, whether it's August, September, whatever. But as far as other activities, is if they meet the governor's guidelines, that's up to the individuals. But as far as the town-sponsored ones, after conferring with the police chief, the EMA director, and other towns and so forth, that's when the decision was made. So it wasn't just one person making the decision. It was everybody cooperating together to make a good decision.
This is Michelle Albert. Since the chamber is the one that plans everything, pretty much runs everything and puts everything into place, why wasn't the chamber involved in any of the discussion in reference to this cancellation?
I don't have an answer for that.
I guess my second question is, at one of the selectmen meetings, and I don't remember the date, it was asked of, who decides and, who's going to make that decision and what are the plans that the chamber is doing for the 4th of July. And at that meeting, I was there, and stated that, the chamber has been having discussions, was making some plans, and would probably make a decision around June 1st. And, that because we wanted to make sure that whatever we decide to cancel or still continue to have that are within the guidelines of the state, and working with everyone here in town as the select board, the town manager, and so on and so forth, after those type of discussions involving everybody, that like a few days later, a letter comes out, and, knowing you guys knew what the chamber's plans were. So I guess I'm confused of why all of a sudden, oh, the town has decided to cancel everything. And we weren't even a part of that discussion. I guess to me professionally, it would have been, something to do in reference to, okay, select meeting, town manager, chamber, police department, fire department, everyone that typically plans these events and work together as a community, should have been coming together as a whole and having that discussion. What are your plans? Because just putting that blank statement out there that everything is canceled, one, it looks like the chamber made that decision. Two, it also doesn't really kind of give the community, even though that we have to cancel the parade for the 4th of July, we're still going to have these events because they fall in the guidelines. They, we're working with these organizations, and so on and so forth. So it doesn't just look like that nothing is going to happen in this community.
So I have a question, Michelle, what events could you hold and be in those guidelines?
As stated at the last selectmen's meeting, we were working on those plans, but we were, I did state that, for example, the Strawberry Shortcake Festival or Strawberry Shortcake Day, whatever you want to call it, could still be had because it's going to fall in a time frame that you can't allow more than 50 people. And working together probably with that organization that puts that on, we could creatively plan something in reference to people placing their orders ahead of time, so if Vicky Page wants to have 10 strawberry shortcakes, she can plan that. She can pull up into the yard and say, okay, I'm Vicky Page, I placed an order for 10, here's your money, here's your strawberry shortcakes, and thank you and have yourself a great evening. Those things can still be had and fall into the guidelines.
The strawberry shortcake is not a town function. I mean, who holds the strawberry shortcake? It's a sorority, correct?
There's a sorority, yes.
Okay.
But so, the chamber works with all of these organizations to put them on their event calendar, and what can we do to really put something together. So it's just, I guess it's a little frustrating, and in reference to just putting that blank statement out there and then having it, okay, what will happen? What will take place? I mean, for example, we also stated that we'd like to probably have the fireworks. I think in conversation that with everyone as a whole, that we could possibly still plan the fireworks. But we need to have that discussion, and that wasn't had. So I guess the question, are you saying that there's no fireworks?
So that was the discussion, no fireworks. I mean, how do you follow the guidelines and hold fireworks? I mean, if we're the only town in Aroostook County that's going to hold fireworks, and it's the way it looks right now, we are the only ones. You're going to have people coming from everywhere. So how do you keep people distance from each other with that many people? How do you do that? Stacy, can you hear me?
We can do the things of maybe blocking off the fact that nobody goes to Trafton, that road is blocked off and everyone enjoys the fireworks, along the highway. And if people choose to social distance in their little group in the vehicle or so on and so forth, that's going to be their choice. But Fort Fairfield is still planning on having their fireworks. I called Fort Fairfield and they're having them. I spoke to the town manager and she said, pardon me?
She told me on last Friday that they were not having anything. Everything was canceled. I spoke with Andrea last Friday.
Yeah, well, I talked to her last week as well,
Mhm.
and she said that
Okay.
she is working with different organizations to still host some things. And one of the things that she has discussed with her people in reference to fireworks can still be done. And they're planning on still having fireworks.
And
So
how do you do
I guess I
that?
don't understand why she
And
says.
how do you
we're
do
being
that?
directed.
How do you hold the fireworks? And how are we gonna be sure that people from this car over here is not gonna get into the car with the people over here?
That's not for us
That
to
was
decide.
based
I mean,
on,
it's like,
this was based on the governor's guidelines, and this was a determination made to keep the people safe. Believe me, I don't want to catch anything. I don't want anyone else to catch anything, and I surely don't want my grandkids to catch anything, you know?
Then
I mean,
Deb-
we have new cases every day, so I'm not gonna argue about this. I mean, you know, everybody has a right to chime in, I guess, but I did it based on the guidelines, and I did it from speaking with police chief, fire chief, EMA director, and I followed suit with every other town, and it was because I was thinking, do you think I want the 4th canceled? Absolutely not. I think it's devastating that all these things have to be canceled, but it's to keep the people safe. That's what I was looking at.
But sometimes we have to look
And
at
I
things
mean,
that
and
it,
to wait,
go ahead.
no, that's, go ahead, no.
Go ahead, Michelle.
As I look at it
I
that,
mean, I
you
have
know,
to ask a question. Do we,
What was that?
I mean,
Michelle-
I have to look at the
Go
question,
ahead.
I have to look at this. Is the town of Limestone, is there some powerful unknown source out there that covers just the town of Limestone and does not protect any other town around? Because everybody else is canceled. That's all, I want to know. Everybody else is canceled. Everything.
All right, Vicky.
The Sun Polaristic Chamber has canceled their August festival, you know, I'm stating law. So that's my take on it.
Okay, go ahead, Michelle.
I
I'm
mean,
going to use
there,
mute control.
as a community and as a municipality, we can still continue to host things, but when it comes to, say, for example, you trying to ensure that people are not going from one car to another car and so on and so forth, that is beyond our control, and that is definitely something we would never do. I mean, I work at Hannaford part-time, and I see it, you know, every day when people are going there and they're choosing not to wear a mask, or, you know, they're not sanitizing, or the fact that, you know, they're, you know, still meeting in groups in the parking lot. I mean, but as a business like Hannaford, they're following the guidelines and things like that of what they need to do to run as a business. So I look at this not on a personal level. I look at this as a, you know, municipality level and a chamber organization level, whatever it may be, you know, that we can still creatively put things together and still hold within the guidelines. So I think having those conversations as a whole with everyone that would be involved. So for example, the fireworks, that would you know, the fire department, the police department, the select board, and so on and so forth. We need to have those discussions as a whole of why can we not fall in the guidelines and still have or not have these fireworks? You know, I've called other towns. I mean, other towns are still having their fireworks, and Fort Fairfield is one of them. So, you know, that's all I'm saying. I just wish professionally that we would have had these discussions as a whole. Anytime the chamber is willing to do something, the parade or teddy bear picnic or the antique tractor pull, I make sure to involve everybody that's going to be needed that day, you know, just so that, you know, we can work together, you know, and either say yay or nay, you know, and maybe there's going to be some times that we're going to agree to disagree or so on and so forth. But I mean, professionally, You know, that's how it's got to be.
Okay, Stacy, I'll unmute you.
So my opinion has stayed the same through this entire situation from the governor's office, the directives. It's all about erring on the side of caution. And I think a lot of communities have erred on the side of caution on what they're going to do for festivities. Now, if Fort Fairfield's having fireworks, that's Fort Fairfield. And my concern is not with Fort Fairfield's decision to have any kind of activities. My decision or my suggestion in this circumstance was based on what I felt was best for the officers of the department and the community as a whole. We've been erring on the side of caution in what we've been doing since the start of this. If we followed the governor's directives to the T, we would have wrote 100 summonses with people that should not have been where they were. But like all of Aroostook County and most of the state of Maine, it's about education. And we've educated these people in, please, just follow the rules and regulations. The other issue is, who knows what the governor's decision is going to be come June 1st or July 1st. If there's a spike in the pandemic, if there's an issue with more positives than negatives, it could change everything. So my opinion on the 4th of July, the parade would be impossible. I mean, that would be absolutely impossible. In my opinion, it would be very difficult, almost impossible for us to guarantee that the 4th of July fireworks would go without a hitch when it comes to alcohol, people being foolish, because that's part of drinking, ends up being foolish, on what we could control and deal with. I understand your thought of, people just lining up along the edge of the road. Well, that's a bigger traffic issue for us than having them park at Trafton. So it's 6 one, half dozen of the other. It's more of an error on the side of caution based on the information that we have. By the end of the month, it could totally change. So I think, my opinion in this situation is still the same. It's err on the side of caution. And if erring on the side of caution is not to have the parade and not to have the fireworks, I back. Is it possible to have the teddy bear picnic? Probably not. Is it possible to have our open house? Absolutely not. So there are activities that, in my opinion, are not possible. And the parade and the fireworks are two that I feel very confident are not logistically capable to do in a safe manner for everyone. And that's my opinion. That was my opinion I gave when I spoke to her about it. Pretty much my opinion has been that since the start.
I guess my question would be, when you guys put out there canceling July 4th festivities or events, activities, whatever we call it, what are the ones that you call that you're canceling? So I'm assuming in conversation tonight, it's fireworks, parade, and what else? Anything else, or is it just those two events?
It's my understanding those are the two major events. So
Right.
That was part of the discussion to begin with. The other activities, like you said, the chamber might have, or the sorority, or whoever, that's their decision, but they take it upon themselves. If it becomes an issue that people aren't going to follow the guidelines, and we get a call of, hey, this person's not down here following our guidelines, it's either nothing or 100%. So it goes to, you're not wearing your mask or you're not social distancing, you need to leave the area. Now it's a trespass, and it becomes more than it needs to be. None of us want to be a YouTube sensation based on the pandemic rules and regulations. No, nobody does. So again, it's just about erring on the side of caution. Do I think that you can have like you said, the strawberry shortcake thing? Yeah, that makes sense. You can make the strawberry shortcake, somebody pulls up, it's just like going to McDonald's. It's a controllable thing, or a somewhat controllable thing. So, it all depends on the decisions that are made. But again, the two major things, in my opinion, and during discussions, and maybe activities was the words that were being used. But again, it's err on the side of caution, but everybody's got to make their own choice, whether they wear a mask or don't wear a mask. And if you follow the guidelines to the letter, boys, there'd be a lot more paperwork, and we just don't want to be that department.
Mhm. So I guess I just want to make sure that when that letter went out, it was in reference to just the parade and the fireworks. And I guess I have another quick question. Did the new town manager step in yet, or is he not coming just yet?
Yeah, he's sitting right here.
Oh, okay. I just didn't see anything on the agenda in reference to welcoming our
Oh, no.
town manager, so I wasn't sure if he was part of this program tonight or what was going on. Okay.
Yep, it's on my notes. But
So
it's-
I guess going back to my first question, is it just those two events?
That's the two major, but like I said, the reason why we're having this informational meeting is if there are activities that can be held and meet the guidelines, I didn't want people just coming in and saying, well, we want to do this. I said they have to come in with how they're going to do it. And that's all we're asking, is that any activities that are planned, if the plan can be presented in a way that we meet the guidelines and everything is fine, then the town can say, yeah, it's okay. But I just want to make sure everybody understands that the information has to get out there as to how it's going to happen, what's going to happen, to make sure that we fall within them. But again, the major ones were, we knew we couldn't control everything. And that's those two things. Stacy, you said, oh,
Nope,
Right.
sorry. And just to kind of emphasize that, for us, if it's a town activity, it's a town activity. I don't look
That's
at it as a
right.
chamber activity. I don't look at it as a town. It's a
that's
town
what I'm
activity.
saying.
So for us to bear the responsibility of what we're going to do at any activity, I have to take into consideration what's best for not just the public, but the officers too. And like I said, this is err on the side of caution kind of time frame we're in. And I think you're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't. No one's going to be happy with the decision. Not 100% of people, sorry. And some are. It's just like the people that want to wear a mask, the people that don't want to wear a mask. You know, the people that will
Right.
follow the guidelines, the people that won't follow. You're not going to win either way. I mean, some communities are looking at doing more virtual activities, coloring contests, you know, different things. You know, I mean, I had an idea, but I'll bring it up some other time. But there's other possibilities, but I have to emphasize, I just did not feel that obviously the parade, I don't think anybody's going to question that, which is unfortunate because it is the longest running parade
Right.
for the 4th of July in the state of Maine. So you might see me just drive through town around the regular time when I light the siren on just to make sure that it kind of took place. But that's unfortunate. And all of us are making hard decisions, and these are unfortunate situations that we've been thrown into. But when it comes to the 4th of the fireworks, I just don't think logistically
Yeah.
we are comfortable as a department. And I can't speak for the fire department. I'm not going to try to, but I don't know if John's on here, but I'm sure he could pipe in with his take that we are erring on the side of caution.
Okay.
That's just kind of what we've rolled with.
Okay. I mean, and I just, so I got an answer to one of my questions, but then I'm going back to Walt. Walt had stated that people need to come to the town office to present their case to see if it falls in the guidelines to say something. So,
That's not what I said. I said this meeting was, when I sent it out, was that they would come with information, not just to say, we want to do this, but they had to come with a plan on how they're going to do it. So that plan has to be sent to the town office. Yes, they don't have to come to the town office. The plan on how it's going to take place has to come here for approval.
okay, so I just want to make sure to clarify. So if the church wants to do the chicken pie supper, before they can do that, they have to present it to the select board to get it approved or not approved.
It doesn't necessarily come to the select board.
I'm going to speak for that one. Kelly Jondro here. As Vice President of Ladies of St. Anne, we are not having the chicken pie dinner.
Okay, so we'll go back to another example, the pet show. I think that we typically don't get into 50 people. I may or may be wrong on that, but that's something we're still working on. So if the pet show, if we thought we could still have the pet show, that has to be presented to you guys for approval or not approved?
Are you having it at a location like the park?
Yes, where it typically, well, I'm not saying we're having it. I just
Right.
want to make sure that whatever plans we have set forth from here on out, we're following the right protocol. We haven't been involved in any of the discussions, so we're just kind of at a loss of what needs to take place.
I mean, I don't want to speak out of turn. I'm just saying, if it's something that you plan, and I don't know if, I guess in my opinion, if it's something that the chamber or another entity is planning, we would want to know, like we would normally know. I mean, we would know.
Correct, and we have always involved
Right.
all departments at all times in reference to our, what is taking place and where we would need to help by just certain departments. But I think we all can agree that I've done very well on making sure everyone's gotten the emails of what's, our event calendar and so on and so forth. But I just want to have clarification, so if the chamber still wants to host their pet show and they can fall in the guidelines, before we can have it, we need to present it to you guys first.
Has to come to the town office. And I would say the town manager has the prerogative to review it and see if it meets the guidelines. And I'd be fine with it.
Okay, so I just wanted to make sure that wherever we're as a chamber moving forward from here until whenever this Corona thing ends, that we're doing the right thing. So that helps. Thank you.
Okay, anybody else have comments? We got just a few minutes left.
If I can, Walt.
Okay, go ahead.
Again, I go back to, it is a hard situation. We've changed the way we're doing business. I think a lot of locations have changed the way they're deciding or doing business, because it's the unknown of the governor could change it tomorrow, could come out and say 50 people, could change the mind and say 25 people or say 10 people. I don't think anybody's making any of the decisions, any community, easily. But if there's other virtual possibilities, or like they did the teddy bear hunt for the kids, I mean, there's got to be other things that can be done. But we certainly would want to know, like I said, if a festivity was going on at the park or out to Trafton or wherever else, in case something did happen, that somebody did decide, well, this isn't meeting this criteria. But again, we are not looking to be the bad guy in any of those situations. We just want to try to make sure that everybody is compliant and does the best that they can do for themselves and everyone around them.
Oh, and that's the way my philosophy too, so.
I have one more thing. I'm sorry. I know they're looking at me like, oh God, but I mean, this is something that we need in order for us to plan for this community. We need to make sure to get the facts straight. We are planning a community spirit days where we're putting a flyer out encouraging that the community dress up their homes, decorate them and things like that. And then at some point we're going to have some judging and then we're going to put it out there on Facebook for the community to vote for, the best thing. Is that something that is okay to do?
Yeah, because it doesn't call for any groups to be together, doesn't call for anybody to police it. So yeah, it's not a problem.
I think you've done that in the past. I mean, that's been something we've done in the past that we've been a part of judging. I think, like you said, thinking outside of the box and what opportunities or what, festivities, if you want to call them, can be dreamed up. It's just unknown territory. Right.
But I just want to make sure that whatever we plan is good. So we can move up, because for this one, we're hoping to start from Memorial Day on, so which is coming right around the corner. So I just want to make sure we're all set. Thank you.
The rest of the board have any comments? Okay, well, I'm going to introduce our new town manager at our next meeting, but he is here right now. And so I'm going to give him an opportunity to, if he has any comments before we start our other meeting.
You see me?
Yep.
Hope not too close, but I'll quickly introduce myself as the new kid on the block. If I look like I'm kind of tired, I just spent 14, 24-hour days in direct full quarantine, 100% of the obligation required, because I came up from Florida. And if you hear my raspy voice, it's because I'm kind of tired and worn out from lecturing all the people that I come here to about what we've got to do. I want to clarify some things that need to be clarified. And in doing so, since after my 14 days there, I started officially as an employee on the payroll at 7:30 Monday morning. At 7 o'clock tonight, I'm going to have 40 hours in this week, so please excuse me for being tired. But I want to explain to you some things, and I'm even willing to take responsibility since I'm the new kid on the block. Can they all hear me? Understand? That's not okay. I'm sorry. I just took up some minutes we didn't have. I didn't hit the right button. I'm the new kid on the block. I'm your new city manager, town manager, excuse me. I don't want to mix people up. And I fully understand more than any of you people would ever leave how much this whole thing, there's probably nobody more upset with the whole handling of, not Limestone, the whole country. But in fairness, I just spent 14 days in quarantine, full 14-hour days to be 100% compliant with the governor's orders. So that me being here from Florida, nobody was going to come say, uh-oh, there's a virus here in Florida, the new city manager brought it. And I'm saying that because there's a lot of legal issues here that decisions were made on. And like I said, I've got 40 hours and it's 7 o'clock tonight in 3 days. And I'm not paid by the hour, so don't worry budget-wise. What I want to do right here now is tell you, as the new city manager, I'm not going to get into a big discussion of right, wrong, and different for what we may have done better. And I'll tell you why. Number one, we can't change it. We can make sure it doesn't happen again. But in fairness, this is the first time in, I think, my lifetime that every state in the United States, including most countries, was thrown into emergency quarantine shutdowns with governor's orders on what to do. And if I had been your manager at that time, maybe I would have handled some of the things a little differently because of experience. But I'll tell you, my recommendation to the board on legal potential damaging things would have been the same. In terms of whether or not the city is going to sponsor something against the will of the governor. I know that's irritating. I know there's people in the audience who would like to say some things we're not going to say tonight about any governor and any party for making such a thing. My hometown is a city in Maine, a small city, who is giving up the 4th of July committee because the 4th of July committee decided not to. Over 10,000 people show up on that 3.7 mile square island, the Salmon Festival and the Pirate Festival. And nobody's happy with it, but they followed the rules that have to be followed so there would be no repercussions against that town. I believe, even though I wasn't part of it, that you would have had the same decision if I'd been here for that time, because my job is to ensure your elected officials do not violate the laws. And under emergency management, whether we like it or not, there were laws implemented that we could be taken and held accountable for. Then there's a lot of other details. I don't know where the 14 days comes up, but if you think about it really quickly, let's say we haven't had much up here, so why are they bugging us? The 4th of July, do you know what 14 days before that is? June 20th, first day of summer. Anytime in that 14 days, if somebody came in here and started spreading the flu, it wouldn't be known till after the 4th of July. Who's going to be blamed for it? Who didn't do their job? Yes, this board had the nerve to stand up for what was unfortunately as right as we can be with the information they were given. I support that quickly. I don't think you can make a different choice. Did it get handled not as well as it should have been? I'm not even going to defend them for that, but I also know the pressure that was on them. They had to make a decision to commit to the governor's emergency management directive. I don't think even after all the other meetings that could have changed. Not because we're not mad enough to make it want to change, but we don't want to face the government on. That's the real issue, the liability. I'm willing to take, in my first 3 days here, all the responsibility and to ensure that we have something in place for any type of event that the town's responsible for, that we can take care of those things. But I can't make the past go away. And I don't believe there's anything that could have been anything different had we had all the meetings. I do agree that maybe we might have had a few little side events, but we're still required to police the events. And I wouldn't want to put our police department in the issue of anything that gets out of control, that all of a sudden our police and fire department becomes an issue. These are things where we've never had to deal with before, and we have to err to the side of safety. And I assure you, in my hometown where I'm part of the event, it's frustrating. But I believe we have to get past that, make sure that in the future, if one of these governmental emergency managed things come down, that we're better prepared for it. And since I got here 3 days ago, I've also become the new emergency management director, and I assure you we'll work on that. I apologize for anything else, but I'm the new kid on the block. Give me more than 3 days to help. Thank you.
Okay. Unless there's a last minute comment, I need to close this meeting so we can start our selectmen's meeting. Kathy, did you say you have something? I saw a hand come up. Okay. All right, so and that being said, we'll begin our selectmen's meeting with a pledge and a prayer. We'll go to that point.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice. What about the prayer, Walt?
I'm worrying about too many things. Our most gracious Father in heaven, as we meet here this night, we are concerned with the affairs of this town. Ask for thy direction that as we deliberate, we may do what is best for our town. And we ask for this in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen.
Okay. Oh, that's good. Okay.
She was just so
All right, so I need to get back over here. Okay. Approved minutes of April 15th.
So moved.
Second.
Been moved and seconded to approve the minutes of April 15th. Any discussion on the minutes? I'll get back over to where I can see everybody. Okay, no discussion, then all in favor then? Okay. Jimmy, I didn't see everybody vote, but
I voted, yeah.
maybe I better have a roll call vote. It's the only way we can do it with so many people on. Jimmy, you in favor?
Yes, sir.
Tad?
Aye.
Chris?
Yes.
Fred? Yes. Okay, it's unanimous then. All right, minutes of May 6th.
So moved.
Second.
Been moved and seconded for the minutes of May 6th. I don't know, who's taking notes here? I can't. Yeah, right. I got too many things going. Fred, you're sitting there. I'm gonna give you, well,
I'll do it.
We're going to talk about this before the next meeting.
yeah, normally the town manager we have is the secretary, but you're new, so you wouldn't know that. It's in our bylaws, so, okay. Any discussion on the minutes of May 6th? Seeing none. Jimmy, what's your feeling?
Yes.
Tad,
Yes.
Chris,
Yes.
Fred,
Yes.
and I am, so it's unanimous vote. Okay. Oh, my word. Oh, how come I'm back to YouTube? I don't want to be back there. Okay, committee and board reports. Jimmy, you have anything?
Yes, I went to the meeting for the water board. They are fixing ground around town where they plowed and made damage. Also, they recommended us to know that if we do open traffic, and if that's what we decide, the pump needs to be pumped. The tank needs to be pumped, excuse me. Fridays are better. That's the only time that they pump. And if we need pipe, Jim said he might be able to get us some just to be helpful. And the other thing, they asked about the sidewalk project, and I told them that it was very quick to give it to us. It was like an hour and a half. We had to decide and get everybody on Zoom, so we were not able to let Jimmy know. I did apologize for that. It was not intentional for sure, and told him next time that we'll let him have ample time to know. And that's it.
Okay. And I did put that in the notes, so the next time we do meet with him, I do have Jimmy down as getting the note format, whatever. Okay, Chris, you have anything?
No, sir.
Pat,
No, sir.
No, nothing.
Fred?
No.
I don't have anything either. We have our NMDC meeting is coming up in June now. They've canceled the meeting for May, so June we'll have our formal meeting. Okay, with that, manager's report.
Okay, because I want this as my first meeting in the record, it might be a little longer than normally, and because there's a lot of issues. So I'm going to read it in full so that it is a full matter of record. It's the manager's report of Wednesday, May 20th. And as I said earlier in the talking sessions, as a new kid on the block, I want to explain my thoughts to some of the issues facing us due to the pandemic. I believe that's critical because unfortunately this year, as we all know, this is coming at a time when we should be concentrating on the budget process. The pandemic unfortunately has brought with it what I'll simply say is a way of life we've never experienced in our generations. Emergency regulations dealing with our activities have been passed down from Augusta and Washington, which we must deal with. It does not matter if we like them or not. There are potential legal implications should the town fail to comply. Tonight, my management report unfortunately has two areas where I feel impact our community the most. I know many managers would agree with my prioritizing in the report. My view is due to the mixed personal frustrations our citizens are dealing with due to the reactions of the state and federal governments because of the pandemic. Issue one, and this seems to be the big issue for most people. When will the various services and functions we support open? I can tell you, I know a lot of communities that wish they had never shut down, but nobody wanted to be the ones that took the risk. Limestone made the decision to follow the governor's emergency orders. A lot of people in the town also are very happy that happened. That's called a no-win situation for the Board of Select People. I got to remember this, people here, not men, so bear with me. So with that, I want to go down through some of the things that I felt we need to get past tonight. We need to bury the hatchet, so to speak, and get on with some issues that are going to be much more important a couple of months down the road than what we're facing here tonight. And as I said at the earlier session, as the new kid on the block, I'm willing to take total responsibility for anything in the past, but let's draw a line in the sand and get along. So the first issue is when will the various services and functions we support open? And I think everybody, including businesses and everything, have grown tired because we're in an area where the pandemic hasn't been much. The 4th of July celebration, under the circumstances brought on by the pandemic and our governments, there is no way I, as tenant manager, could have provided a statement of support to have the celebration to go forward. And with that, I'll add also, since I've listened to the conversation tonight, that's stating the town's participation. I think if we had met, as everybody asked, it would have been everybody's participation because nobody probably would have wanted to take the legal responsibility. If you go on to other things, and I'm adding a couple of things here, that could probably be worked on, but the town is still going to be responsible for policing them to the emergency management orders. And I hope we don't have to get into that. I've seen too much of it around the country. I spoke also of having grown up in a town that has one of the biggest 4th of July celebrations. It's a town of 1,300 people, 10,000 people come to or more on the 4th of July. It's going to damage that community because they have, besides that, a pirate festival and a salmon festival. And it's going to destroy the economy of some of those businesses because that's that whole year. It's frustrating, especially with the fact that Northern Maine has had very little cases. So I feel your frustrations. I understand them. As the new emergency management director, I assure you, before the governor comes down with any other type of this in the future, we'll have the best laid plans we can. Another area is the Trafton Lake opening. At this point, I'm not prepared to give an exact promised date. I can count on other than it will be as fast as the town can meet all the health and safety requirements. Some of these issues are not related to the rules guiding the pandemic. I intend to provide the board within the week a timeline which may include portions of the area being utilized before others. We can do that legally. As town manager, I accept the responsibility for any of the delays caused by issues before me other than the pandemic. They're over, they're done with, I can't do anything, let's move on and not have it happen again. I'm not blaming anybody, we just have to make up for lost time. It is not the time to find fault, it is the time to resolve the issues as quickly as we can and move into the summer of 2020. As for the sign, we are waiting for the word from the graphics company and we'll follow up on that tomorrow. There is a question about the sign and we're trying to get that taken care of. I met with the recreation director yesterday on other things in Trafton Lake. We are dealing with the recommendations passed down from Augusta and remain hopeful that some of the rulings will be relaxed. If not, we'll continue working towards programs that can provide activities within the guidelines we have. I think it'd be a terrible thing for the length of summer in Limestone, Maine, to not have something for the kids. What they are, the rec director's working on, I'll be working with them to hopefully be able to provide some good, healthy things for them to do that meet the governor's emergency management mandate. The town office is going to open on Tuesday, May 26th. And I can say that with quite a bit of confidence, barring the governor doesn't pass down another unexpected bill. With health and safety requirements that we'll have in place, and we're going to be doing, there's at least 2, possibly 3 selectmen who are going to join me and others, and we're going to do it and get it done because we really don't have time to send it out and have somebody else do it and get open. We can legally open at that time. We realize there are many of you who are anxious to get the business done as quickly as possible, but please try to respect when the parking lot is full and there's a long line, that our staff will work as diligently as possible to move people in and out as fast as possible. A lot of businesses that have started opening up, there's been a lot of not goodwill passed on to the poor people that work there. I'm asking for the town to respect that my employees that's going to be getting your license and other things are not the people who caused the problem. So bear with us and we'll move people as fast as we can. There's also a question about the park pavilion. And although I haven't met with them, Randy Booker has stated that he's planning to start the project by the end of the month as soon as the ground is dry. It's been too wet for him to do the work he's going to do there. The Robert Frost Library, the proposal for stage to reopen was passed to me today. I'm going to ask for the board to approve it as per the suggested guidelines of Maine State Libraries Prevention Checklist. They can implement the following services beginning on June 1, 2020. And this is the request from the library board. They're going to create a designated 72-hour book quarantine station so the books aren't being passed on the next day. So those people that are waiting for the big book, they're going to have to wait a few hours. Begin a recirculating material after quarantine period. offer a curbside delivery service of any materials in their inventory with the lone library still being unavailable. Discuss the possibility of a book delivery service. Additionally, they want to continue to offer their virtual story times, virtual book clubs, ebook, e-reader circulation by email. They would like to do all this. It fits within whatever other libraries do it, including things on loan from the Bangor Public Library. That is probably the one I am the most comfortable with, that is 100% to the emergency management recommendation. And so that's good. Issue number 2, which without the pandemic would be issue number 1, is the fiscal year 2021 taxes, which if it hadn't been for the pandemic, we'd be passing the budget in another, 4 weeks at town meeting. So that's my biggest concern right now on what the bottom line is going to be on the tax bill the check has to be made of. A lot of people talk about the mill rate. Well, what you're really concerned with is, what is the check I got to make out for? How much more is it than last year? So I'm going to be doing some stuff on concentrating on that. And I must admit, in simple terms, it's not that difficult. Now we're pushing to get something done after the fact at a July town meeting. And there have been some items that have come up that are going to be very, very difficult to work for the Board of Selectmen, the Budget Committee, and the town in terms of impact, much of which has been caused by the epidemic. There's also a list of unintended consequences, and if everybody doesn't know what that means, that's when you make a decision not realizing something else is going to be impacted. And I have a real fear that Washington and Augusta has made a lot of decisions without necessarily thinking of the impact on small businesses for all communities. We're going to have to find what they are and be ready, or we might find a shortfall in revenue that puts us in a dangerous situation. I don't have those answers, but we can't wait for somebody else to find the questions. The financial audit for fiscal year 20, I'm pleased to report that we are in the first phase of the fiscal year 20 financial audit with our contracted firm, Chester M. Kearney CPAs. During this phase, we work with the auditor to provide documents in advance for the verification of each of the completed monthly closings. This process advances our timing to finalize the final phase in a timely manner. This will be more important this year due to the pandemic than any of the years in my management position. The reason for that is the auditing firms get very busy. And if you're not ready on June 30th for them to come do this, we may not get our audit report till later. So we're doing this in the fact of they're doing the pre-work now in advance, setting everything up so that we hit the ground running and we know that our books are where they're supposed to be, rather than finding out there needs to be an adjustment later on. Bear with me. I've introduced this before, so I was happy to find out Limestone already does it. There is reconciliations that somebody was supposed to be here to speak on.
I thought he was coming tonight.
Okay. I'm not sure what they are. I don't know if you would like to mention that, but we'll have to skip that. Tax acquired properties. If you are one of the folks who have not paid your taxes, you will find that you probably received or will shortly a registered letter, which means you have reached the day that you potentially do no longer own your property. Is for boards of selectmen and city managers, town managers, is dealing with that. But it is required by law. It's not a choice by the town. And it's state law. So do all you can, if you get that letter, to get in here and find a way to get out of the foreclosure situation. I don't believe there's anybody on the board that wants to take anybody's property, but the law requires it. Personal property reviews. There's also a thing called personal property that a lot of times takes the risk to everything. And that's items at your home or big business, at big money. But for a small business, like a home run business, we might have a tax bill because the person never removed the worn-out printer from the bill. So we'll be putting together a complete package to get this cleaned up and chase through it. It's a very complex, difficult process, but again, it's a state law that we have to deal with. The present financial status to the board here, as you're aware, once again, the pandemic has our revenue sources from excise tax to property tax falling behind. So don't take this as we're in deep trouble, because we do have a line of credit expecting this was going to happen. But right now we're setting somewhere in the neighborhood of $40,000 of excise taxes that should have been paid, that the governor has said, oh, don't worry, you've got to July, we're not going to give you a ticket. Well, once that comes in, we barely hit the line of credit, but it puts us in good position to know that eventually you're going to have to register your car and pay the excise tax, and we'll be back in the black again on it. That is pretty much what I've got to say on what was on my desk that was on the agenda. If there are any questions from board members, I would try to answer them, but I believe we've met everybody and we've agreed that we're going to work to resolve all these issues. Thank you.
Board have any questions? Thank you. By the way, I did have a quick introduction in the last meeting, but I should probably introduce George Bud Finch anyway. So you just saw him. He's our new town manager. He's had a lot of experience, and we are very grateful that he chose to come out of retirement and to help our town. So we welcome him.
Thank you.
Okay, with that, public comments. Let me get back over here. Does anybody have public comment?
Is there any plan, and maybe I missed it in all that conversation, about a town meeting?
No, we haven't even talked about that yet because the governor hasn't allowed us to get that far into it. Many of the towns are still trying to figure out when they're going to have it. And some of them that normally have it in April are planning theirs in October. So, but we haven't made any plans yet because we're still waiting to see where the direction's going to go.
Yeah.
So if that happens, then are we falling back on last year's budget?
If that's what we're told, we will operate on until the new budget is approved. So yes.
Any plans on still meeting with budget committee and things like that? Have
Yep.
those
Yeah,
been-
we're still pursuing it just like normal.
And we'll be notified when those take place?
Yep.
Okay.
Okay,
Well,
Vicky,
can I
you
say-
have something?
well,
Yeah. Second, let me unmute you. Unmute. There, now you're unmuted.
The election is planned for July 14th. So, and then of course, usually we hold our town meeting like the next night. So I got word today from the state that the election is going to be July 14th.
Oh, okay. That's
I
good to
just
know.
wanted, yeah,
July 14th.
Technically, our town meeting will be the 15th.
That's what we normally do the very next day, so.
and they are recommending to people or stating that, you know, that it would be good to do absentee ballots. You know what I mean? It keeps the number of people down coming into the building to vote. So they're recommending to do absentees.
Okay, so we need to get that word out. It should be on the community channel and every place then. Okay, I'll put it on the web too. Chris, you have something?
Yeah, I got a question. So with Chester Carney working on our books, my understanding was that they wouldn't be able to audit them and that we've got to find another auditor. Where are we at within that process? Because we've got to have our audit done prior to that July 14th if we're going to have town meeting several days after.
You want to answer that? over here. Yeah, just move over here. Bring your mic with you because you need that. It's two different platforms here.
That's why I was very pleased to find out that Limestone utilizes a process that a lot of towns don't. A lot of towns wait till the books are completely closed. There's a lot of pre-work. If there's anybody in the group that works financial, there's a lot of pre-work that has to be done on an audit. There's not a lot of municipal audit firms around anymore. And it's very prudent to be one of the first people online, because if they have all the stuff done, now officially it won't be till June 30th, everything's finalized, but they'll have literally 10 and a half months completely set up so that when they add the last month and a half, the audit for all intents and purposes is done and just has to be analyzed. If you wait to after June 30th, all the towns that are taking auditors in earlier are using up their time, and you're lucky to get your books closed for a couple of months. Even though you're in your new fiscal year, you don't really have those numbers. Typically with the new computer systems, there's not a lot of issues, but this year with this, I will tell you, if it hadn't been here and I'd have been here earlier, I would have been suggested to the board, let's not wait to June 30th. Let's start the phase, what a lot of us call the phase 1 of auditing, bringing the company in and getting them started, because there's just tons of information they have to go through. So we will, I believe, based on everything I've seen, we will be ready and we'll have our books and stuff ready for, I don't know how we're going to get the town report printed out yet, but we'll have at least the dry document done for that. If that answers the question, I'm not sure.
So well, not quite, because back sometime this winter, we had Tim Patroff from Chester Kearney come in, and they were going to help us with the process of closing our books, because we had several things that we had to change in them. And
Right.
as in depth as Tim was going to have to go into the books, it meant that he wasn't going to be able to be our auditor. He and the town has an audit contract with him. So Tim's working on whatever piece that is, and I'm not clear on what that is, but I do know that because of what Tim's doing, we have to find another auditor. So I guess my question is, where are we at within that process? What is Tim doing, Chester Kearney doing right now, and what is our process going forward?
Okay, on day 3, I can tell you I had not connected that dot yet. I was understanding the audit firm was doing this and was going to carry it on. So tomorrow I will have the answer, because I'm going to be really searching if we don't have a company lined up to get somebody on board.
Sure. And I'm not trying to put you on the spot. I'm just trying to figure out how these timelines are going to work. So
That's probably one of those little posters on the desk that I haven't got to yet. And it caught me a little short, but I assure you that will become a very priority. I was under the understanding this was his last contract and he was finishing it up. So I will get with people tomorrow and get the answer to where we stand, and I'll pass it on to all the board.
great, thank you.
Nikki, do you have anything you can share with them?
I sent everything that Tim Patraw needed for what he was gonna do to get, our things in order. I hadn't heard back from him, and I had asked Bud today if he had received an email, and he hadn't heard either. So we were just waiting on some info from him. So I gave him all the stuff he needed 2 weeks ago. So we're just waiting to hear back. So that's where we're at with that.
Okay, I guess the question I have is, Pat has said that he's got reconciled now quite a ways back. And so that should be so much simpler for Tim, because that stuff is all done for this year. And so it takes it all the way back into that year now. So anyway, I guess that's what we need to find out, is just where we're at with that, because that would be the determining factor. When Pat shared with me this last, I guess it was about a week ago, I thought maybe he was going to be here tonight. But anyway, the point was that he's found a number of things that Trio wasn't aligned properly and had to set up some things in there. The bank also had some things different that we had to make changes there. And he explained so many things that he found that he's got them corrected. So it makes it so much easier now for everything to be reconciled on a monthly basis rather than trying to guess why this doesn't match. So, and the fact that with the excise taxes and stuff for Caswell, that was a big change. So all these things have been corrected, I know. So anyway, yep, we'll find out where we're at.
That's just one good thing. I would like to add on that what we're talking about is common, and that's why a lot of towns have gone to doing the pre-thing, because there's a lot of things that happen within the computer that aren't really even the issue of an employee. They're issues of computer programs that have had updates. Trio just put an update in on automobile registrations, and a day later they had to cancel it because it had problems. And so I don't want anybody listening to that having a lot of fear. If anybody can ever remember the game show that said, "I'll call a friend," there's one thing good about being my age and having been around a while is if we can't find an order up here, I'm going to call a friend and see if we can get this done. Thank you.
Okay. Any other public comment? All righty then. Next thing is old business. First item we have is approval of the budget committee bylaws. Now, we've reviewed them before. The school department has reviewed them. They asked us to change out where it said board to committee. That it's been done. So I think all the changes have been made. There was one change that I made the other day. I recognized that one of the board members' name was wrong, so I corrected that. But other than that, anybody else have any comments about the budget committee bylaws?
Move to accept?
Second.
It's been moved and second to accept the minutes. Any further discussion on the, minutes, on the bylaws? It sounded like Chris. Chris, did you make that motion?
Yes, sir.
Fred's doing a shorthand here. But we do have this recorded, so it'd be easy enough to correct it. Okay, all in favor then of the budget committee bylaws as reviewed?
Yes.
Fred says yes. Tad?
Yes.
Chris?
Yes.
Yes.
Yep. Jim?
Yes.
Okay, it's unanimous then.
Walt, under your chat, you have Tracy asking, can we speak about Trafton?
When we get there.
Perfect, thank you.
Okay, I'd like to make a proposal that we accept Bud's volunteering to be the EMA director. We need to have a vote on that to approve it.
So moved.
Second?
Jimmy and then Chris. Okay, Tad,
Yes.
Chris,
Yes.
Jim,
Yes.
Fred? And I'm yes, so it's unanimous. Welcome.
Thank you. Not that I don't have enough to do.
Yeah. Just a mention of comment though, he is very familiar with the information there and what's needed and so forth. And that's the only reason why he was willing. Okay. Next item then we have is the Trafton water hookup. Okay. I might mention there that we have gotten a bid in on that, and the work the ordering of the stuff has been done. Originally, it was going to be a line run all the way down across the field to the bathhouse, which was going to be very extensive labor-wise and cost-wise, including the time that we were asked the highway department to help with it. So it was going to tie them up big time. But since then, there's been a proposal to have the tanks moved up to the little pavilion there, and the back portion of it be sectioned off to where all the tanks will be put in there, because there's a water line right there and there's power right there. So it can be a much quicker installation, and actually is going to give better pressure down to the bathhouse, because now you've got the campground that will be direct fed and it'll be downhill from there. So it'd be good pressure for everybody. Oh, I don't know what else we need to discuss there, but
So who will be building the, basically the secured pump house?
what was that? I didn't hear it all.
Sorry, who will be building the secured pump house essentially? Because I know we've got to keep that pump under lock and key.
Yes, that section there is supposed to be building a wall in there, and Doug was talked to about it. I don't know if that has, where we're at with that portion of it. Bud says it is in the process.
Great.
I met with the rec director, the gentleman that helps take care of it, and Chris and I, Selectman Chris, I guess I gotta call him. We've talked about the best way to do this is going to be a certain amount of phases, try to meet the governor's notes and requests, get the park open. But there are a few of the issues that also tie into beyond that as things that we need to get done. So what I'll be working on, and I'll be asking if Chris can make the meeting, that we're going to get together, and we're going to target some dates so that people will know what we're targeting. They're going to be very tight dates because everybody wants it open now, but we have to protect the safety of the community. So we're going to be putting something together, and some of the dates are as soon as the June 1st requirement, and some could possibly wind up because there is uses to the park that doesn't do things. The camping one, we've got a proposal that we've talked about to offer to the people that camp there, and putting it all together, I think most of us can come to agreements on some of those and at least get it open so that it doesn't just sit there bare. I don't know if Chris wants to talk about that, but he and I have been sharing information for a couple of days on it, and we have a real desire to get it open. And I think there's enough in there that by no later than Monday, we'll have a full list of everything that we truly believe we could get done as quick as possible. Chris agrees with that or not. I think that's where we stand, Chris.
Do we want to, are we able to open, and I don't know if this is the place to talk about it, but are we able to open the campground off of the existing well?
No, because the tanks have to be moved up to the building up there.
What's the cost of tanks?
Well, it's 1,000-gallon tank, so I don't know. I haven't priced them out myself.
So you've got to move a 1,000-gallon tank up into the pavilion?
Yes, and then the chlorine filtering, all that stuff, everything has to be moved up there.
Chris, that's the items that I mentioned that I want to get laid out so that we don't all of a sudden find we've got something. And I'm hoping that we can get everybody that's participating together up there in the next, as soon as possible, so that we don't miss something. Because some of these things that seem impossible in the right timing order might not be that difficult. So what I want to be able to do is sit with everybody in the same room and lay them out in a true order as you would with any club you take. So I think we can get there, but this one popped up unexpected to me.
Something about they gotta move the water tank.
Okay, it says Caden St. Pierre, but go ahead.
Yeah, this is Cadence's dad. It is not a 1,000-gallon tank. It is 2 big pressure tanks and a 100-gallon holding tank just for the chlorination system. Plus, the chlorination system has to be moved up. So yes, we can get the old well going, but you can't have the old well going because it is been deemed by the state to shut it down and drill a new one.
So what's the time frame on this, DJ? If I asked you to do this tomorrow, realistically, what would it take? This is what people want to know. They want a firm time, not, you know what I mean?
Well, I ordered parts last week, and that 1.5 horse water pump that was 2 weeks out, plus the 1.25 pitless is 2 weeks out, and that will make 1 week tomorrow. So give me another week, and I can have the parts.
So what about the rest of the process to get it going?
I can do it with help with the highway department. Within a day, I can get this going if I can get all the parts in hand.
Okay, thank you.
On the licensing side of it, do we know how long it's gonna take to license the well to be able to either do non-portable water or portable water?
Well, after we flush the system, flush a new well, because after you put a new pump in, it does make the well dirty. And after you flush it out, then we have to do the chlorination system, which is on Doug, the rec director, and Jimmy Layton helps out some with that. So it kind of veers on their part.
Thank you, DJ.
You're welcome.
Okay. Let me just check the messages, make sure everybody see. Says they were asking about Bud being EMA director. We already made that announcement. We had the motion and stuff accepting that. Something about, I thought this was all planned and budgeted last year. Okay. We talked about it last year. We looked at that's why we started into this as soon as the ground allowed us to move forward. Wendy sent in, didn't the governor pass an order today saying that campgrounds can open this weekend?
Private ones, not public.
Private ones, yes.
Have
And
we reached out to the state? Because I know there's a process you go through to reopen businesses. Have we reached out to the state to see if there is a difference, whether we are considered private or whether we are considered public, or whether we fall under their typical campground standards?
I don't know if that's, I don't know, but that'd be, I don't know. Vicki, have you talked to anybody about that? Since you were doing this before.
We're not a privately owned campground.
Well, I know
We're
that.
public.
I know we're public, but
I did reach out. I sent an email to the governor's office 2 weeks ago, and I have not heard back yet. The only response I got was that they received my email and somebody would get back to me. I had questions about, you know, what the guidelines would be and stuff like that, and I had not heard back. But
I
as
wonder
far
if
as-
we could reach out to Troy Jackson to help us to get some of these answers, or to find someone to help us get answers.
What answer?
you want to know if we could reach out to Troy Jackson.
I will reach out to whoever it takes. This was an announcement that was just made. My sister was shooting a campground. I know those fall into a different category. I will find out the answer on ours. I believe that anything that we're phasing in is acceptable, but I think we do need to have the answer. And that's one of the wonderful things about this pandemic. Do something, and the best we can do is keep going after them. I expect that the private campgrounds put enough pressure on that the governor probably relaxed it at the last moment, knowing that some of them aren't going to open up on Memorial Day because they just haven't planned to, unfortunately. And I don't want to get into politics, but this has been a very tough thing. we're not alone in this, and we will get somebody onto these questions, and I've been around long enough that I still have a few friends younger than me in Augusta.
Okay, I have a question here. Tracy has raised her hand, so I'll allow her to speak. Tracy?
Hi. So when the governor released the opening date for Friday, I get there's a lot of people that are stuck on private campgrounds. But if you go and you read her orders, it also stipulates campgrounds and RV parks. Is Trafton not considered an RV park? And what makes it private and unprivate? Because Old Orchard Beach their campground to me would be considered owned by Old Orchard Beach. And they're opening. All this stuff was supposed to have been looked into at the last town meeting. And it doesn't sound like any of this has been done. And now things are set to open and nobody has any answers. The well also was supposed to be looked into 2 weeks ago, and you guys had given the go-ahead for Doug to get things done, and it doesn't sound like anything's been done on that either. So who's holding all these things up, and what's the reasoning for it? Because if the campground is not going to open, then people need to be notified as soon as possible before other places become booked, because we will not be going to camp at Trafton for $800 and there is nothing there aside from lots. There's no vending machines that have to be disinfected. I get that we can't use the park. That's totally understandable. I have children and we're gonna have to abide by those orders. But in her guidelines, Trafton is completely different compared to like an Old Orchard Beach campground. You know, in there it talks about things have to be disinfected. If they have a picnic area, those things need to be disinfected as well. The food, the serving of the food, no pools being open, things like that. Trafton, I think if somebody would have looked into this, I get 2 weeks ago that Vicky sent an email, but that doesn't sound acceptable to me that the governor has taken 2 weeks to respond. I just think there's a lot of shady things going on and there's some people who are against opening of Trafton. But if that's the case, I'm not going to play into this political mess. I'm going to take my camper and I'm going to go somewhere else. We've been camping there for 10 years. My mother was there for 15 years prior to that. And just most recently, the last 2 years, Trafton has been nothing but a fight. We haven't had a brand new picnic table out there in 20 years.
Okay,
So
let's,
these are just my thoughts.
I'm gonna stop you right there. Some of these ideas, I think you should write it in and send it in to the town office so we can act upon them and find out what's going on. But I can tell you overall, the process of getting the well hooked up and stuff, that started 2 weeks ago where we were trying to find out how we were gonna do it, get bids on it and so forth, to make sure that we met all the requirements from our procurement policy, all these little things. And because of the delay in getting the well hooked up, we just didn't see, some of us didn't see how the park out there could be sustainable until we had water. But anyway, there's a number of issues at hand here, and that's what we're working on. And the new town manager, he's already gave his comment on it, and he's going to be looking into this stuff. So that's all I'm going to say. Okay. Anybody else had something? Okay, Patrick Burns, I got a question. Where water is not ready, why so much, and where is the budget? Where's the budget go? I don't know. I guess I'm not understanding the question, so.
Why is it so much cost to go out there at $800 where the water is not ready, nor everybody says it's going to run off the old well and you guys raising it, and yet people can't even go swimming in that pond because there's leeches, there's other things. So all this budget money you're getting from camping, and it's a reasonable price, but couldn't you guys put in a budget for salt blocks? That is, and there is salt blocks that can go in that water, because you've been doing it for years down one. And all of a sudden, when everything went up to Trafton, you never put salt blocks onto it. That's my question. I mean, a lot of kids likes to go swimming during the summer months, and then you go to Trafton and you can't go swimming because they're afraid of getting leeches or.
And we have looked at different options out there. We've involved the state. We've had DEP, EPA. We've had so many people out there looking it over to come up with what we can do out there legally. And one of the options was to drain the lake and let it sit for a year, and then to have the runoff refill it. But then because of downstream and so forth, there's limitations to that. And every time we come up with an idea that most people agree on, somebody steps in and says, no, you can't do that. And we've been fighting this for a long time. So, but the issue we're talking about right now, and we've kind of gotten off track, is the actual well itself. So let's get back on track here. Yeah. Okay, so let me see, anything else? So you really do not know if it will open up? No, we don't know yet. We're hoping that it does, but at this point, we're not willing to commit to it. It says here, please let us know if it will be open or not. What is the cost for this year? Walt, I agree with Tracy. I was on the traffic committee and I feel the board did not want to hear our suggestions. It is a lost battle trying to improve our campground. Okay. So the next topic then, the park pavilion, town manager has already reported on that. Frost is out of the ground. It's dried up down there pretty good, so he should be getting started on that pretty soon. We've had quite a discussion on 4th of July festivities. We talked about the need that if people still had activities they wanted to go, that they have to come up with a plan on how they're going to meet the guidelines and how it's going to be policed and so forth. And that needs to come to the town office to make sure that everything is in order. But as far as 4th of July fireworks and stuff and the parade, we still stand behind the decision that that should be canceled. All right, well, at least some of us. New business. Again, talk about Trafton Campground opening or not. We just discussed that, even though it wasn't part of the topic.
Well, may I speak? On the opening, okay, so understand that I am here, as everybody here, responsibly on the board for the people of the town. We made a motion to open it as soon as we can, and I stand behind that. I couldn't give a day, and I don't think anybody that's in the room would be fair to give a day. But I promise you that we did make it, as myself, I speak, and we did say we will open it this year if we're able to, and that is what we're going to do. I mean, I don't know why it says open it or not. It should say if we're able to, because if we can open that thing next week and we get the pump and everything, then I'm very much to get the campground open and let these people back into their campground. I think we need a better report. It should be what you're trying to do that's going to be constructive. And I'm not directing this to you, I'm just directing it to all of us. As far as the spacing, what are we going to do with the, right or wrong, I'm not a politician, but I'll tell you, everybody that's set up here that's against it's been to Lowe's, been to Walmart. I've been up there for 3 years. I've never had 100 people come to my camper and probably never will. So I think we should be diligent to the people that want to camp, to our community, to make sure that we're working forth, which I know we are. And I just want everybody to know that. And that we are going to open it as soon as we can, as far as I'm concerned, because we made the motion and we stick behind our word. We're just trying to diligently fix stuff so it's safe and nobody's sick. As far as the water, and as far as I'm concerned, after June 1, if the governor says it's okay and we have water, there wouldn't be a reason why we can't open it. Does anybody else on the board think differently?
I think everybody's in agreement with that. That was our original decision. And the only reason why it's on the agenda is because of questioning that without water and so forth, if we couldn't get that working, how are we going to legally have them out there? That was where the question came in. And that's why we came up with a different plan for the hookup, make it much simpler so we could speed up the process. And everybody that was out there that day, rec, highway, DJ was out there as a plumber, and that's how we came up with that plan. So we are trying to move forward with that, but at the same time, if something doesn't go right with the test, then we're right back where we started, so.
Absolutely. I think that I would recommend that the town manager updates of the rec director weekly or every few days of the process that we're doing, just to let everybody know that we're diligently working to solve this the best of our ability.
Walt,
Yes,
Walt,
I'm listening.
this is Kelly Jondro. Jimmy, are you speaking as a selectman right now or as a camper? Because you cannot do both.
I'm at a selectman meeting, so obviously I'm speaking as a selectman, and this does not benefit me financially one bit. We've gone through this thing and this frustrates me very much because I'm only here for one reason only. I have a million things going on, and it's brought to my attention very much so. I'm only here to help the people. I don't need to do this. I'm taking hours and hours out of my time. I should be home with my family to the betterment of the town. So if you're questioning if I'm doing it for the betterment of the town, yes, I'm at a selectman meeting, so it's very essential to show I'm speaking as a selectman.
Okay, let's move on.
Well, I've got a question. But I've got a question for Bud. Would you be interested in having a key people meeting sometime this week so that you could kind of go through the list of things that need to get done, and so that, you know, people feel confident and maybe there's people that are invested in helping to get this going?
It's really interesting because I'm probably the only person in the world that would enjoy coming into a place in a pandemic time with so many things going on that it'd be impossible to handle them all. And I put in the time to do that. I think there's a lot of things that we've got to do that are new in the terms of this pandemic has created things. It wasn't too long ago, we weren't sure the campgrounds were going to open up anywhere for maybe 6 months to a year. These things change daily. We move our priorities as we have to. We're a limited service community when it comes to these things. And these are all, for those that don't think the employees are putting in their fair share of work, these are all falling on the shoulders of people that have a full-time job without the pandemic stuff. So bear with it a little bit. Yes, we have never done, and no place ever has satisfied every townsperson. But I think that we've developed in the few days that I've been here that there's a real willingness, not only in the Board of Selectmen and the employees, but the community to start moving forward on these things, but we can't move them all at one time. We need to hit these ones that are effective up front. The campground is one of them that seems to be there. I can't answer for the people who don't like anything that's ever been done there, but I can assure you the board has never told me don't care about it. They've told me that we need to work on this and get it brought together, regardless of any past judgments, errors, and so forth. So bear with us a little bit and try to give us some breathing room to have it. Chris, I hope that we're able to get together, and I hope that we're able, I used to put out in all my other jobs as city manager and town manager, a weekly update of what's going on in the town. I don't label it as a town document. I label it as from the town manager's position. And it would list all these types of things to try to keep everybody prepared. So they're working on things they didn't hear at the local coffee shop. They're learning on things that are actually factually being done. So I think that we can come up with, when we get together, all the steps that we need to take. But I can tell you right now, if there's a water test that needs to be done and the DEP and EPA require it and it fails, it's out of our hands. I'm sorry. So for me to commit without having the exact data of where this stuff goes, I don't want to put a 100% open date out there. So at some meeting in the future, somebody's going to come in and say, you missed it. If I miss it, I want it to be perfectly known on, we had absolutely no control of it because we're not perfect. So I don't know if that answers it, Chris, but I sent you a note that I think we've got enough details. I talked to the road commissioner today that we need to all get together at the same time up there and either want to, those that want to wear masks can, those don't want to. I'll wear one if everybody wants me to. But I think up there in a matter of 30 minutes to an hour, we can come up with a pretty accurate data as to when each phase of this that we see is possible could open. I probably not satisfying everybody, but I think I put enough hours in the draft and for something I didn't even really realize was on the municipal side of the issue up here. Well, we've got bigger budget issues. So please, my third day, give me a couple of more days to try to catch up on a few of these things, and I will hopefully be able to satisfy most of the people, because I'll never satisfy everybody. So Chris, give us some time, and if tomorrow or the next day is a better day for you, but we need to get everybody in the same spot at the same time.
Sounds like a great plan. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Budget workshop. I'm going to take the next item out of order, though, if everybody's okay with it. We've got an appointment to make. Let's do that before we go into the budget workshop. It's suggested that we appoint Tom Albert to the Budget Committee. We are short an individual on there at this time.
Did we go through the proper procedures that we set forth as far as the advertisement, taking everybody that was on the list and going through? Is he the only one on the list, Walt?
He was the last one that we had on the list. He just volunteered here just, I don't know, a week or two ago.
Okay.
So
Second.
Move to second. Any further discussion?
I think we've discussed this time and time again, that we want to reach out to the people so that we get a diverse board. If we have open positions, at least simply just putting it, on our Facebook page, on our webpage, and any other place we can think of, I think is the direction we need to continue to work towards.
Well, it should be an ongoing thing all the time. It should always be there.
Walt,
Yeah.
I have posted it on our Facebook page on 2 or 3 different occasions. I've posted that we're looking for committee members and stuff.
Right, I know that. That's what I said. But like I'm saying, it needs to continue. We need to always have it there so people are always looking, and anybody that happens to look at it, if they're interested, they'll come forward. That's our interest. Okay, so we have a motion and a second. We had some discussion. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Tad?
Yes.
Chris?
No.
Jimmy?
No,
Fred?
yes.
And I'm a yes.
Of course you guys are.
What would that?
No.
What are you insinuating, Jim?
Doesn't matter. It's my opinion. I'm allowed to have that. Thank you.
Well, tell us your opinion then.
Doesn't matter. You guys have your opinion. And I have my opinion. Because the conduct that he went in, and Walt's excluded from this, but Tad was there and did in the boardroom that day, and you guys stand behind and think that it's okay to commit that. And I don't want to hear the Walt's thing about, well, it didn't happen in there. Okay, so if I shoot somebody next door, but I can still commit, it doesn't work like that. And don't nod your head, be respectful, because I'm not nodding myself to you.
Okay, let's stop right here. If this is the discussion that we should entertain, it should be during an executive session with the board only.
Okay.
Okay, so it's time for the budget workshop then.
We're not gonna have the discussion on it, I take it? No?
It's got to be on an agenda.
No, it doesn't.
Yeah, we have to, the individual involved has to be part of it. Okay, so. Well, yeah. Let's see, there's library, recreation. Anyway. Page 26. Debt retirement, okay. Nope, it's all pretty much set in stone there. Any questions on the debt retirement though? Okay, seeing none. Move on to page 27, economic and community development. Is what? Next year, next July. He was just asking about the backhoe. It's next July. Okay, economic community development. We have a request in for $10,000 and the breakdown as itemized here. A stipend for the position of $5,000. The limestone orator newsletter, $1,100. Office supplies, $300. Advertising, trying to get help from other businesses and so forth, or helping the businesses also, $500. Planner project, $400. Training and travel if needed, $500. Annual dinner meeting, $300. And the other was the last of it of $1,900 to cover anything that might have been needed in there.
Where's this document you're referring to, Walt?
It's right on page 27 of the report.
Okay.
It's all listed under payroll, even though it kind of breaks down, but it's just because we just generally put the money over there, we allow them to use it. And that's why it was taken out of there some years ago, is because we had no way of showing where it actually was going. So she just broke it down this year. Michelle, you have anything you want to add to that?
No, I mean, I kind of made some comments the last meeting. You know, the Limestone Development Foundation is a volunteer board and works hard in trying to do the right thing. But sometimes, you know, more hours are needed and, you know, we need to do a little bit of something. Plus, if we want to continue with things like the limestone orator, the dinner meeting, and the planners, you know, the flower planners, things like that, we need a little bit of a budget to do so. In hopes that, you know, doing what we're supposed to be doing in grant writing, which we are starting to do that in reference to the revitalization of Albert Mitchell Park and things. So we're hoping that while we're researching those type of grants, we can also get some grants for some other things on economic development and some of the things like the, you know, mailing of the newsletter, just small things, you know, type of thing. So maybe the beautification of Main Street, things like that. We're looking into those as well.
Okay, thank you. Any questions for her?
I do have this whole, like, is this part of just you, the select board making the decision to yay or nay it, or is this part of a budget committee discussion?
No, we're just going through as a preview right now of the budget and so forth. The budget committee is not involved yet. We have to make our decisions on it, or I should say our recommendations, and then it goes to the budget committee for theirs, and then the two of them are combined for the town meeting.
Okay, that's okay. Thank you.
Okay, any other questions? All right, moving to page 29, or just 28, I'm sorry. 28 was the rest of that, so now we're good. Page 29. it's all pretty straightforward. Oh, by the way, I did call the state about that main PERS for the 3 retired individuals that we have from the town. And it is not really a pension or anything like that. It's the GLI, it's the insurance that by state law, we have to continue to pay that as long as they live. So it's about $25 a month for all of them, but that's how it works. So we will have to continue paying that. Anytime we have a retiree that's under main PERS, we automatically keep their insurance going at the level they had it when they were here. So just to explain that a little better so everybody understands. Okay, so I don't see anything here that we can talk about, so that's good. Social services. Okay, we have it's approximately a $3,000 increase in the general assistance. Vicki, can you explain what happened there?
Not really sure. I'm reading the notes.
Yeah, we went from 22,000 for this year to 25,000 for next year. It's under general assistance.
I think we've increased it. I think it's because based on where we're at right now, there's a balance of 1,054. Unfortunately, due to the pandemic, we haven't had the past couple of weeks, we haven't had anybody come in, but I think that's why we increased it because of the number we were at. We budgeted the 22,000 and we've used up to 20,000. So we were pretty close. That's why, I mean, we could probably, take it back down to the 22, but we haven't, given any general assistance out since this whole pandemic thing. People have not been coming in. And of course we had the stimulus check that came out. And that's another thing that has stopped people from coming in to apply. So I think we'd be, over that number by
Okay.
now if we hadn't.
Well, the new town manager will have a chance to look at it too. And he can make recommendations as he. Well, that's my thought because a lot of people were out of work and it's gradually going to work into it where.
It's starting to catch up.
Yeah.
You don't have a greater need for that general assistance in the very near future.
For what it's worth is what you budget is a material you by state law will pay a percentage for whatever it is. So,
and the state reimburses us up to 70% of it.
Unfortunately, a lot of places it's less than that. So
Yeah.
70% at least helps.
Okay, ambulance. Well, we know that was a really hit for us this year. So things that was not expected. So that's why that's such a large number there at this point. Just out of curiosity, did we ever get the payment from LDA?
We did not.
And the next question would be, is the LPA going to go in on this for next year? That's another question we could find out. Is there one way-
We can't hear Fred. All you can hear is like an echo.
My question was, the LDA was going to pay half this year. My question is, are they going to pay half next year? What direction are they going? That's what I like to know so that we can firm up that part of the budget.
Well, I think that needs to be followed up tomorrow then because they've had plenty of time. The loan was approved back on the 9th of April. They would have had the funds by now. as part of the financial board there, in my notes at home that I got from, it shows that that was processed and accepted, so. So, I don't know, that might be something that,
It's, once we get past this meeting, so I can start spending less time on getting prepared for the meeting. I have a lot of, everything from businesses that have asked me to come see them, to knowing, I was at Boring when the original change was made. I got an opportunity to see up there. And I definitely plan on going there even before, but with the addition of this is, we want our money.
yeah, they committed to it, so. 'Cause that's putting us in the straits now.
Well,
Yes,
I attended their meeting last week that they had, and at that meeting, they just had approved the go-ahead with the NMDC funding. And there was no other discussion in reference to ambulance or fire or anything like that. It was just they had approved at that meeting.
you mean the Board of Trustees approved accepting it?
To proceed with NMDC and the loan.
Must be another one then.
Yeah, they've already been approved for the one of them.
Yeah, the one on the 9th was already approved.
Okay, they just talked about a loan and NMDC, and do they give the go-ahead to do it? And the board had gone back to Carl and asked him to find out an answer in reference to some interest in all that stuff.
All right, well, I can check my notes when I get home. I've got all the financial notes, so I'll look at it. Okay, anyway. The next item, there's no changes right down to the end of this category. So anybody have any questions here? Okay. Let's jump over to page 33, unclassified. Again, it's pretty straightforward. It's all flatline, just like last year. Any discussion here? Okay. Page 35. Talked about the reserves.
This is reserves, chamber of commerce.
No, page 35.
Oh, no, 33.
That was all part of it. I said right down to the end, unclassified.
Well,
Where are you at?
page 33.
Yes, we already talked about it. I said it was all flatline. I asked if there was any questions.
Well, one of it is, when you put for the 4th of July.
Yep.
Will we do that in?
Well, yeah, for next year.
What about the money that's?
We don't know if we're still gonna have it later in the year, so we
Okay,
can't.
so when you, all right, that was my question.
Yeah, I don't want to take it out because if we do end up doing it,
Okay.
yeah.
All right.
That's my feeling. I don't know
No,
if anybody's opposed to that, then they better say so. Okay. All right, now back to page 35, reserves.
I have a question.
Okay,
On page 34. under unclassified, you show for
they ask for it once a year.
Okay, so they have received that.
Right.
Okay.
Normally, in past years, that's come out, we get it about the end of May, first part of June, so it's right at the tail end of the year. Okay. Reserve account for administration. Last year, there was a $1,000 budget. This year, they're requesting 4,000. It says account will be used to pay for a new phone system, possibly used for water. I was gonna say, new phone system? That
Not the
should be
phone.
there. That, we already
That
did.
shouldn't be there. That shouldn't be there. But yeah, for the water issue.
We do have a water problem every year. It's the same thing. The spring comes and we can have 1.5 feet of water in the basement. And the sump pump sometimes can't even begin to keep up with it. So that's why that was put in there.
Well, have we had a contractor or somebody come to give an estimate on what would be done?
Not this year that I know of, but in the past, we've had a couple different contractors come in and take a look. And the only suggestion is that completely around the outside of the building has to be dug up and drainage pipe put in with gravel backfeed. And at the end of it, it has to be tied into the storm drains.
So $4,000 isn't going to touch that.
No, it won't.
So what is the $4,000 for then?
Well, that's what I'm saying. I guess Vicky decided to put it in just so there was something in there to start working with.
Good.
Because something is better than nothing. We definitely got to get this addressed. I mean, the police department has lost so much stuff down there, evidence and everything. Our files for the town office have been basically destroyed because of the water level. Yeah, mold, yeah, big time. And that affects the whole building, so the health of everybody, so. So it was just a start. And realizing what the year is and what taxes may end up being and so forth because of the ambulance and all the other things. I think it was a good decision to put something in there, even if it wasn't a whole lot. Hopefully we'll have other resources, maybe with possibility of a grant or something with infrastructure.
So back, since we're in public safety, well, is somebody going to reach out to the LDA again to find out if they have any intentions, or I'm sure they have good intentions, but what their intentions are as far as to receive our money? Because obviously we're right up around the corner. We're going to need our other half within months.
Right. And I just gave that motion to our new town manager about the possibility, and he's going to check into it. So.
Okay, thank you.
But at the same time, I said, I'm going to check my reports too and find out just where we're at, because I have all of the things from NMDC, so I can see what's going on there.
Okay, that'd be fine. Thank you.
Okay, Public Works. Last year into the reserve, we put 40,000. This year, they're suggesting 15,000. And we've used quite a bit of the Public Works reserve this year already for repairs and for new equipment and all kinds of stuff happening down there. So, but right now, that's what the suggestion is. Police Department, 10,000, same as last year. Fire Department, he went from 25 down to 15 because they got the new generator in up there, and because of his needs, he feels that this is where he needs to be. So that was his suggestion. And we got, that's, we've got, that's what I'm saying. We've got the equipment that we need right now, so. Okay. Library, in the past, they had 0 going into the reserve last year and the year before. This year they're asking for 1,000. And I think that's a doable thing, because just with the expenses they had this year unplanned, like the alarm board and everything else, that's costing. Parks and Recreation, last year was budgeted 3,000. They dropped it down to 2,000. The revaluation reserve, still 2,000. We all know that 2,000 a year is not going to get us to the point where we need to be for our reeval. The cost of the reeval is way beyond what we have in our reserve, so. But we keep working towards it. Yep.
My question is gonna be the vacation reserve. The reason why we put that in there was if somebody gets done and they got vacation time on the books, he paid them for it. If you don't have money in the reserve and you draw it out of that department budget, they're going to be shortfall by law. That's why we started that reserve.
Right.
And I don't know what's left in there, but
Well, it's felt that we've got enough in there now for it.
I would really like to know what's left there, because if it's not, I'm telling you, if it's not $10,000, it's not enough.
Yeah.
Because it don't take very long to eat up the vacation reserve if somebody gets done. If they got 6 or 7 weeks on the books, and they want that in pay, when they get done, that's what we pay out. That's a big chunk.
That's exactly right.
So I really like to know before we flat fund that to zero, I'd like to know what's in there. I think that should be, I think something should go in.
Now, if you notice, I got a note there too, so. I'm following up with it. Okay. What was the last one? Okay, vacation reserve, okay. Solid waste disposal. Pretty much where we're at, that's what they send to us, so. And that's based on a per capita, so. Public safety. Okay, I need water. Excuse me. I have a question about the streetlights, though.
It should be down.
Yeah, it should be down instead of going back up, and I don't understand why it's all the way back up and beyond where it used to be.
I mean, even the note says this number decreased to reflect conversion to LED streetlights.
Right. And that's my big note. I got it circled and it said, should have decreased.
Yeah, something's not right on that one.
But I did notice that if you look at year to date, we're $5,711.
Oh, wow.
I figure this, the purchase of the lights. Yeah.
We're just paying for the rental.
I don't know. That's where, if you notice, they're all circled because I've got questions. Excuse me.
Not right now.
So anyway, there's questions there, so we'll follow up on that. Hydrants, that's water department sends us the bill. Fuel and utilities. It went up. So the whole sheet here shows an increase of over 18,000, so.
Doesn't each department put in their budget?
Yeah, but this bottom line in public safety is for everything here. If you look at fuels and utilities, they're all zero because that doesn't, there's nothing in that because they are broke down under each department.
Okay.
But the bottom line is for the ones above it. It's for everything. That's up 18. But most of that is because of streetlights. So if we can figure that out, then we'll know what's going on. Okay, and next sheet, public safety continues. And then county tax is the next line. And that went up $9,883. Almost.
Do we know how close the county is to having their code enforcement deal together?
I I haven't heard anything. Vicky, you ever, anything on that?
Heard anything else?
Chris, can you repeat it so others can hear it? Because there's questions.
Sure. My question was, sometime this winter, the county had announced they got a large grant to do a county-wide code enforcement or something along that lines. I'm not very particular on or specific on the details, but and I was wondering if we've got any update if they're headed that direction this year coming or not.
I'll call Ryan tomorrow.
Town manager said he would call Ryan tomorrow. I do know, like you, at our meetings, that's what everybody was trying to push for. So we get a lot of this stuff with the ambulance and all these other things kind of in the same direction. So we're all working together and coming with a better plan than each individual town. So I know where you're coming from.
Well, and I think we need to, even if we've got to spearhead it, I think we need to head that direction again this year on ambulance related items, because that's a very concerning price going forward.
It is.
And I think the county's well, personally, I think working with the county to help find a solution might be the most successful right now.
And I agree, like I said before, with some of the towns out west, the counties out there, like in Oklahoma, where they're all joined together, it works so nice. I mean, just part of the meeting there for Marlowe, it was a enlightening thing that, well, all those little towns out in the country and everything, they still have ambulance service because it's all centered by the county, not by the town. So it all works out really well. Okay. School appropriation, and we have Bill with us. Ha ha. Why don't we pull up the school budget then, and we'll have Bill explain to us what's going on. Mr. Dobbins.
Good evening. Well, are you able to hear me?
Yes.
Thank you. First off, I'd like to welcome the new town manager from the school administration and the school committee members. Welcome. We look forward to working forward with him. I'd like to give you a quick summary first, because the school committee has been working on the budget approximately 3 months. We've been really working on this on and off workshops. We've had 2 to 3 public meetings or Zoom meetings through the public to get input. A lot of vast rumors out there. Nothing was decided until last week. The school committee finally came up with a budget process. That's what I'd like to summarize for you this evening. The overall budget from last year to this year is an increase of $30,265.30. If you're just looking at that, it's not too bad for a new school coming into its realm at this point. But always have a big but on this whole thing, is when we started out last year, we talked about a fund balance, and the fund balance was derived from 15.14% of the carryover from RSU 39 since we withdrew. We worked on a figure that they suggested, RSU 30 suggested to us. It was $223,002. The bottom line when it came out was we only received 149,000. So we're down there. Second thing, they also suggested when a year ago this time I put in a budget of 8,800 for each student going to be tuitioned out. They went back to the withdrawal agreement and they changed, they moved up to the agreement on what was the withdrawal agreement, moved to $11,020. That was an increase in this year's budget of $167,550 that we had to scramble to figure out how we're going to cover that this year. Chris Colin is on also, and also Kathy Bollier here. And I think Michelle's still here as a member, so we can share some of the comments as we go through. One other thing we were expected this year to do was there's approximately 14 elementary students that elected to go to RSU 39 for this year only, under the withdrawal agreement. We had to make that payment too. That was unknown until we got into the 4 or 5 months into the program. To make it work last year with these figures, we also took 250,000 out of the reserve account, which leaves us $250,000. Now, working with everything going on this year and the predictions, the unforeseen problems that the pandemic has given us, problems we're looking at, there's a possibility of a curtailment of our state subsidy. It could be up to 2 payments. Might not be, but that's some of the conversation that we had at different superintendents committee meetings there. One payment from the state is about 123,000 next year. So if you take that and multiply by 2, you get about $250,000. That's one reason why we're not suggesting take anything out of reserve account this year, because we don't know what's going to happen with state funding. Back in 2008, Walt, if you remember, we had a curtailment there. They took one payment away from us in June. They waited right to the month of June and took it away from us. And we didn't notice, weren't notified until I think February of that year of 2008. So a lot of school districts had to do some scrambling at the end. Hopefully we'll know better in the fall what's going to happen. In saying all this, basically, because of the vote on of the school committee to elect to go one more year tuitioning students, high school students 9 through 12 to RSU 39 or Fort Fairfield. In the differences that I just explained to you, there's going to be, we're asking $368,040 additional to what is raised this year. That's the summary. That's where it comes down to at this point. I do have to commend the school committee. They have worked very hard over this last 3 months with my business manager. We try to look at everything. One of the things hit us right in the face is we have another student starting the fall that will go to a special school, and we're estimating that could be between 50 and 60,000 we got to pay right up front. That's law. That's special ed law. I can't get around that. That makes 2 children out of Limestone going to the special school, which is over $110,000 just for those 2 students. Those kind of things are killing us. The other thing is our asset at the building there, being there for 1 year, we've looked it over. There's major concerns there. We've got some major concerns for the assets of our building. It has not been kept up the way it should have been. That's why I went into the school renovation fund and was able to receive about $750,000 under a funding grant that we'll have to have approved probably by the taxpayers and paid back over a 10-year through ADA compliance and indoor quality compliance. We don't want to look on that. The school committee also has changed a couple of people around. We're able to, we have one retirement, which helped out the budget greatly. We also had another person that is transferred from our local funds into our federal funds. I got some more federal funds. So on the bottom line, it saved us some money there. So it does reduce the taxpayer burden down, but it's still up there. It's pretty high up there. I think, and I apologize, Walt, not getting into this to you earlier. We just, as you know, last Wednesday, we finally finalized it. I had to do some finalization over the weekend, and I got it to you so you could have a good Monday night reading. I hope you read it Monday night to keep you busy there. It's everything summarized basically right there. I'll entertain questions, or if Chris has got anything you want to add to it, who's the business manager, or Kathy, who's the chair of our school committee. But I did a quick summary at this point. We could go detail by detail, but that's the bottom line as it comes out at this point. I'll entertain any questions, Walt.
You said, what do we get from the state, you know? What's the objective?
You got a question here?
Was not able to hear it.
What are we getting from the state of Maine? What's the projected revenue we're going to be getting? Do you have your preliminary ED 279?
Yes, the projected state subsidy for next year is $1,481,415 and change. To get that, we have to raise, required part of it, $537,372. That's under the ED 279.
Yep.
If you looked at the ED 279, Fred, which I know you're familiar with, is, excuse me, we've got that new building over RSU 39 that is still, there's a bond issue that still has to flow through it. So it looks like we're getting a lot of money, but 630,000 of it is a flow through part of it. And we're still trying to get out of that, but the state says we've got to put it on our ED 279 for a while anyway, until they figure out how to change that around. So that number looks inflated when you look at that ED 279. So you got to recognize that you got to make sure you take out that flow through money of $630,899. That's not ours. That help you out, Fred?
Yep, that's what I was looking at.
I would like to ask a very simple question, since I'm going to be inheriting working on this budget really quickly. I don't have my documents with me, but if I was to ask you, how much money directly from the town did you have to have on the payment, total amount from taxes last year?
For last year?
Mhm.
Give me a second. I can tell you just a second. Hold on, please. Whoops, I did the wrong column. Hold on. $719,500.
Okay.
Is that correct, Chris?
Pretty close, yes.
Okay, yeah, that's
All right.
figure,
And I'm saying it's a
719,500.
simple question, but for me, I have to do my budget on the bottom line, and I want to be sure. Sometimes it gets to be confusion over the way the state has you do the tax money. So I always like to have, when I deal with you in the future, is what is the bottom line going to be that I've got to put on the tax bill? So that was for last year.
Yes.
And what is the amount that you believe right now, should it all pass and everything stand as it is tonight? How much money do you think you need from the town taxpayers this year?
$1,087,540.
That's what the town has to pay?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear that question.
It's what the town has to pay, as he said. What was it? Yep. It's the,
It's $300,000 different, Fred.
368,000, Jim.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
There's a reason I asked that question, because the average person has a hard time in anywhere, not just Limestone, understanding the school budget and its direct impact on taxes. And in the process that I'll be bringing to the townspeople, it breaks down all the departments and stuff. And in this case here, education is part of the town, and a lot of places it's a separate budget complete that the town really almost doesn't get to vote on. So I like to have right up front, knowing that there's probably going to be changes and you've got to go to the same town meeting. I like to be able to put in there right up front what the impact is going to be to the mill rate, which is going to be the impact on what the taxpayer gets in his bill. And that's basically the numbers I have come up with. But I've always found it nice, because occasionally I've had this in my career where there was misinterpretations of what the question was and its direct impact. And all of a sudden the bill's changed and somebody wants to yell at the school or yell at the town manager. So now we have an agreement. We know what we think we're looking at. And I appreciate you putting it in those words, because I know in a lot of towns, it's one of those last minute things that all of a sudden it becomes a rebellion against taxes. And I like to have the people know right up front that, you know, the town needs this, the school needs this, and this is what we're looking at. And this is a significant impact on the mill rate. So I want to be sure that I've done my homework on my budget that I'm presenting so that we truly get to the town meeting with people truly understanding. I know you people put your budget together. I want ours to be the same way, so that there's no all of a sudden surprise the night before the town meeting that somebody says, oh my gosh, the taxes are going to go up. And in this case, it's not one where cutting a few dollars here and there is going to drop down $300,000. So I appreciate you putting it in words, because now I can verify I read and understand your budget. So thank you for that and taking the time.
You're welcome. I do want to make one comment. The school committee has gone through this. We looked at everything and we've cut basically everything we dare to cut. The big problem is we don't know what the state's going to do with the curtailment. Like I mentioned ago, in 2008, we were hit bad then. And this is twice as bad. So that's why we're looking at probably 200.
And I, having not worked with these yet, I just wanted you to know, I feel the same way, that we have a lot of unintended consequences. And for 3 months, the casinos have been closed, and that's a big amount of the revenue that goes into the education budget in the state. And I have a lot of fear that a lot of the things we've been promised in the past, everybody knows that the government only has money that they take from the people, and they're going to want a lot of it back. So I'm very nervous, not so much about how much you're spending, but how much revenue you're really going to get from the governor. And we have the same problem on our side. Revenue sharing is one of our big amount that we get from there. But the state's been known more than once to hold it off for 2 or 3 months. And if we're putting in a budget this big and we have no choice to do it, we better have a good look at, and I'm sure your people have, and they have here, and will continue to, is be sure that when we get to the town meeting, we're all on the same playing field.
I totally agree with you. Yes, I totally agree. The other pitfall that we're looking at right here is that legislators in the state of Maine passed a bill that we have to meet within 3 years our pay scale for teachers up to $40,000. So we got to look at that for the next 3 years. How are we going to get to that point too? So they're just putting too many handcuffs on us right now, trying to make this education part go.
And that's why I've told the selectmen that we have to get out of the mentality of looking at a 1-year budget as a snapshot in time that's from July 1st to June 30th, and start really looking ahead to some of these things, because I'm not awfully confident the state is going to be, not that they've ever been generous, I'm not as confident that they're going to be generous over the next 12 to 18 months, because I'm not too awfully sure that there's much of a rainy day fund left down there.
Yes, I have to agree with you on that.
Okay.
Well, the other thing is, if the state actually paid, like the citizens voted years ago, that they pay 100% of the education stuff, we'd be okay, but they have never stepped up to that yet, never been able to. So that's why so many schools are in the same predicament.
That's right. The law, I think it was what, back in 2007, somewhere around, or 2006, where the public said, look, the state's got to pay the 55 or 56% of the EPS model, went up to 51, then dropped down to 47, and never made it up there.
Nope.
After the public said, you do it, and they just ignored it.
Okay, anybody have any questions for Bill?
What is the bottom line that wants us to raise for taxes? I think that was question you asked. Is it the 740,000, or is it?
It's up over $300,000.
Yeah.
300,000 plus the 5 by 4.
And one of the reasons for the increase right now, I don't think it was said, was normally in past years, we've had the reserve where each year the town people have wanted to pull some of that out to offset the increase. Well, now they're down to, what'd you say, Bill, 250,000?
250,000, it's gone.
Yeah.
So every year,
so we're at that point now where now it all comes back to us regardless. Okay, any other questions?
Walt?
Yeah.
what's the next step? So I'll know what you want from us.
The next step will be, we're gonna review this ourselves, and then the budget committee will be reviewing it. And they'll be meeting with you also, and the school board at the same time, and come up with a recommendation also. So when we go to town meeting, there will be three of them. There'll be the selectmen, there'll be the budget committee, and the school department.
That's what I understand, yes. Is the budget committee going to be a face-to-face meeting? Since after June 1st, we can go with 50 people in the meeting?
Yeah, should be. We're hoping that that's where it's at.
Great.
Can you give us they have, I think, 10 categories. Can you break this budget down into 10 categories?
It
looks like it's just
right here.
No, all I got was this here.
Oh, no, this was sent to you in an email.
Oh, I got it. Bring it.
Yep.
No, you got it. Yeah, I know.
Okay, I think we're good then.
So, Walt, I just kind of got a statement just to kind of summarize up what we're looking at. In my opinion, we've got a 6 mil increase from the school at their number. We've got a 2 mil increase in just the ambulance. That's if LDA pays their portion. And then between the highway and PD, we've got somewhere around a 2 mil increase. So between the two budgets combined, if we accept everything just the way it is, we're looking at 10 mils right now.
Right. That's exactly the way it's written right now.
So there's going to be some tough decisions as we start digging into this stuff.
And that's where our next budget workshop will be centered, is trying to see where we can make those recommendations to these different departments and so forth, and the school, see if we can come up with any ideas for them.
Yep. Thank you.
Okay, we thank the school committee for being here.
Thank you, Walt.
Have a great evening.
Thank you.
Okay. Well, the next one is revenues. We know that this year we got a large boost with the revenue sharing, but I can't say it's going to be here next year. It actually went up $133,490 from last year. So that was a nice shot in the arm. Looking down through, I've just kind of highlighted a few. I don't know if anybody has any questions or concerns on the revenues. Most of them are up. There's a few that have gone down. And we know some of it, like the tax interest and stuff, that's down. It's down by about 6. Let's see. Tax liens, that's actually 500. So, any questions there? Like I said, a lot of this will have more formulated discussions when we actually start our budget workshop. Now we've got most of the information in front of us. Now we have the chance to start crunching the numbers and working it.
I'd like to make a statement in regards to the revenues. The majority of our revenues are very flexible based on car sales, revenue, and so forth, state subsidies and so forth. And there's a number of us, even though I haven't been working the past year and a half as a town manager, there's a number of us believe that the state is not necessarily looked at all the unintended consequences at the level they're going to impact rural communities. And so we don't have a whole lot of revenue that comes from other sources other than they control how much we get. They're not, a lot of times education will be told they're going to get a certain amount of money, and most of the time they get it. Revenue sharing, they make a projection, and the projection was made based on the great economy we're having, or at least in some of our views. And now we're looking at an economy that's for 3 months, it's taken a wicked beating. So I don't care what they promised us. Revenue sharing has never been guaranteed. So there's a loss of that. There's another whole package that I'll be giving you regarding excise tax. And as you all know, the excise tax is based on first year of the car, the second year, I think it's 7 years it goes down to. If a lot of people all of a sudden get into a position where they've decided to put a car off another year, we're going to lose new car excise tax or start lowering because everybody holds the cars. There's no guarantee that's going to happen, but there are people who study the budgets a lot deeper than I do, think we should be concerned about that and not look at, wow, we had a great year last year. So I'm going to be putting a package together because we have to at least understand it when we go forward with the budget, because the last thing we need is to be deducting the revenue from property taxes and then find all of a sudden we don't have that revenue. So I just bringing that up, that I am working on something. I've got it from one of my friends in a bigger city down in who took it upon himself to put it together. And not all of it's going to impact us, but some of it's things that I think you people all ought to be very aware of, that there's a red flag setting out there that might happen. And some of the things we know, others we don't. So I just want you to have that as you're putting the budget together and we come with final numbers. My thoughts on what I'd be doing for you is I'm going to take the mill rate as it sets and the mill rate as if we had everything that's in there, and then another third one being, because I think the worst thing that can happen is a reduction in the mill rate in this. I mean, we'd have to reduce $300,000 out of the budget to do it, which is about half the municipal budget. So I'm going to try to provide, and I can't remember which selectman we talked about this, as I'm going to try to set something up in 3 options as we try to guess what the town is really going to be willing to support and non-support. We'll have all that data, because the last thing I want to see is we have a town meeting and all of a sudden we've got to go cut $100,000 somewhere and we don't know where we're going to do it. I'm hoping that don't happen, but that's the process I'll be working on, and I'll keep you posted on it.
Okay. There was a line here that I've got questions on. I don't know. On page 41, line 90, it says reappropriation. And it shows year-to-date expense of $5,431,000. I think it's because of the ambulance service being put in there. So that would be offset by any payments that we get from Loring and so forth. Because the normal would be half of it, which is what was actually budgeted, so. But I don't see Vicky here to answer that question, so. Okay. Public Works, revenue, Limestone Community School plowing, sale of salt to Caswell. That's down about 3,000. Any questions, comments? Okay. I hear somebody clicking on a typewriter, but a typing board. Police. Any questions there?
On the LDA, have we seeked to make sure that we're still in agreement with the, hold on a second, I'm sorry, with this arrangement with the 20,000 still low?
What was that? You were breaking up.
I'm sorry. I said on the $20,000 for the LDA, are we still into a contractual obligation for that? Or is that still, has that been set in stone? Or?
I thought they told us that, I thought Stacy mentioned to us that that was no longer.
That's what I thought. I thought they found private, or maybe I was mistaken, but I thought somebody said something about
Said
it.
they didn't have a need for it anymore because they're doing everything online.
Oh, okay. Okay. I knew it was something, but I wasn't sure. So
yeah, they're doing all the electronic fund stuff rather than having them be the escort and so forth.
So the 20,000 is no more, I guess.
Right.
So, okay, so that shouldn't be there.
That's my understanding.
That's what I thought too. Okay.
The job corps,
The-
the contract, the LDA, emergency services, that was your police and fire, that should stay 20,000.
Well, that's what Stacy was telling us at that meeting.
No, I think he confused you. The LDA pays for services of police and fire of $20,000. That should be in the budget. It was job corps, but when we did payroll, that's gone away because
Okay, I see what Fred's saying now on the
That's good to
last
know.
year was 6,000, but now it's zeroed out. I do see what Fred's saying now. I misunderstood too well how he explained it, but now now that Fred has, I see it now.
emergency services, and that was your
It's
police.
under job corps, Walt.
Yeah, I see it.
Zeroed out. Okay.
Okay, are we on the right
Okay,
page?
so we're good then.
And I think that's real cheap. I think they get it real cheap on that.
I guess maybe. But that's part of the reason why the LDA is willing to pay the ambulance too, is because of Job Corps and PFAS and all that, so. Because the number of people are out there, they want that as part of the contract. Okay, any questions under fire?
So one of the things when Caribou was negotiating with these new towns, they talked about how they calculated the reserve amount and added that into the cost of doing business or charged for the reserve account that they have for the ambulance service. I know that's one thing that we don't charge Caswell for in the fee. Is if we raise a certain dollar amount to put into our reserve, we don't ask that of them.
Okay, I guess I didn't know that, so.
Well, I just picked it up going through all of that talk that Caribou had with us. And thought, proportionally, if they're using our fire service and if we're saving for a rainy day to buy equipment, proportionally, we should ask that of Caswell.
It sounds feasible to me. I think that'd be a good thing to find out about. I'll make a note.
Is this the other town? Should we
Caswell.
Yeah, they say it's only done by verbal, and I believe we need to have a legal document signed of that relationship. Been over the fire service for a while, but I do believe that it's one of the things that we need to do. Oops, sorry. It's one of the things we need to review to be sure that we're meeting all the legal requirements of doing that and that the money's coming in on the right item. So, and that one I picked up myself really quickly, and it might all be okay. I just had questions that need to be answered. We'll get to them.
Okay, thanks, Chris. Okay, library. You notice here that the budget last year for the reserve was, well, they were budgeted. Wait a minute, what's going on here? I didn't even notice that. Anyway, it was zeroed out last year, but it says year to date 1,000.
So they spent $1,000 even now?
Well, yeah, that's what it looks like. That's what I'm saying. What, I don't understand.
I think we'll have to ask a question.
But I know what they were talking about doing was in the past, they would sell the books and so forth. And the money they took in was going to the, what do they call it? Friends of the library or something like that. They were handling it. And at one of our meetings, we talked about this, how it needs to go back into the library because the library is the one that bought them. Those books are still owned by the town, so the money needs to come back to the library. So we talked about it at least going into the reserve, if nothing else, so it was there. So I'm not sure what's happening here. I did just caught that for some reason. I did make a note about the sale of the books, but. Okay. Recreation, swimming lessons, $500, pool rentals. So that's where families could rent the pool. Originally that went to the school department. We just took care of any swimming lessons that was charged because we had to pay for the lifeguards and the trainer and so forth. So that they brought that down to 500 because now it falls back under the town. We didn't have to share that with the RSU. Okay. So we've made it all the way through.
Well, we've also got the copy of the Public Works without the guy.
Yes. That'll be part of our discussion when we do our budget workshop. Because we've already basically gone through this. So now we've got something to work with when we actually start nailing this down. That was the whole idea, to give people a chance to review it. And that was your request, as I recall.
Yeah, no, it's fine. It's quite a savings. I'll just bring it to everybody's attention.
Yep. Okay. I guess we're down to elected officials report. Fred, what do you have for us?
I got some questions. First, can you give us an update of the sidewalks? Because I wasn't part of that meeting.
Okay.
What's happening?
Well, it's still on the go. The question that was brought up by Jimmy, the highway foreman, was that they're concerned about coming down Huggard and they're actually building out into the road. So it would cause a problem with plowing and obstruction of the traffic flow and so forth because of the hill being there, the narrowing down of the highway. So by putting that out there, it would make it really hard for him to deal with it. So the suggestion was to go back to the DOT to say, what other options can be done? One of them was that they could have a stand that they would put out in the spring when the snow is gone that would mark where it is so that you'd have that safety zone. Whereas in the winter, it would be pulled back so that they could still do the plowing and snow removal. That was one of the things. That they've already been pursuing the High Street. They've done all the legal legwork and so forth. So right now, everything's still moving forward, and they figured by September 2021, as I recall, I don't have my notes in front of me, but that's when it should be completed by.
Okay. 2022.
Yeah, 2022.
Starts in September 21, end in 2022, September.
Okay, that's one question. Second question was back last fall when we were talking about trying to change the speed limit up by Dollar General.
They wouldn't do it.
Even on our second letter? Because we didn't get a response. Okay.
Yep. They said people are too comfortable with it the way it is that they see no need for it.
Yeah, we may have to go political on that and find out, could go a different avenue.
I know, it seems like it should be the request of the town, not.
Yeah, that's just
not
crazy.
the state.
I think we need to go another avenue. Okay, and then the solar panels, we were pursuing that. We were waiting for information for Chuck to get all going on that.
Yeah, he couldn't do anything more until he had all the bills from the town and the school to see what the electric usage was.
I understand that.
That's what he was waiting on.
Where are we? Are we still waiting?
I imagine so, because I've made notes on it, that it's still on our agenda list to follow up with, and I keep asking questions. But that's what I'm told, is that they're still waiting on the information before you can go any further.
I think we need to push out a little bit. that may help us on the budget. If we can get this going and reduce our electrical consumption, and it may not help us this upcoming year, but in the future, it will definitely help us. So I'd really like to see us find out what entity we're waiting on. We're waiting on the town side or the school side. Those are my questions.
Okay. Back here, I do that so it gets recorded on YouTube and so forth. I mean, on community channel. Okay, so Tad, you have anything?
Yeah, I just want to thank Vicky Page for her time in the hot seat as interim town manager. She stepped up when the town needed her, and I appreciate that. That's all I have.
Yep, I have it on my list of things here, so thank you. I know I don't have to do it, but I think all of us owe her thanks for the time that she put in and so forth. I know there's been some difficulties for her in some aspects, and some of the work that we've asked of her, I think she tried and should be commended for it. Okay, Jimmy, you have anything?
I got a few things. First of all, I'd like to thank the highway crew. I noticed today, or yesterday, I'm sorry, about the patches in the road on High Street and stuff on the way home. I know it's a Band-Aid, but it was a lot better ride, and so I'm sure for people walking also without all the holes. And I thank them for that. I also thank Vicky. People didn't understand about the budget and what it saved us. She did a great service for the town at a very minimal price to help us, so we didn't have to dig money out of the general fund. So I also thank her for that. Another thing, just a question that obviously we're probably going to have to speak to somebody about legally, but it was just a concern. So tax acquired properties that we have now, they're technically in our possession. Is that correct?
Yes.
So there's people living in some of these is where my concern is. Does that come up? It would come on the liability of the town, obviously, if somebody should, God forbid, if somebody should, the home burn or a life's lost or anything like that. How do we have coverage for such a thing to make sure that we're not liable for death or hazard of any sort?
I will put some information together on that as I started working on that list today. There's the 3 years that goes up, and again, I've been out for a year. They may be changed some things, but this, what you're talking about, has been around for a while. You foreclose on the property, you send your letter out, but you have to, there was a ruling at a point where you had to actually say, we're taking possession of the property. There's a fine line there from the 3 years to when you officially, and I can tell you this from when I was a selectman in the town of Wells, we were getting ready to foreclose on a piece of property, and our attorneys came in and said, don't do that. And we didn't really quite understand why, and it turned out to be one of the biggest oil reclamation junk holes in the world, and the town would have been, if we'd have taken it, would have had to pay the whole bill. So there is a requirement, and I want to verify what that is, and I'll get you the legal definition, because if you do reach that point where you cross that line and people live in the house, you owe the liability on it. So I will get you the data so that you have the timeline to cover that.
But we have crossed that line, right, Walt? I mean, we have.
We're at 30 days right now. We've given them 30-day notice. And at the end of that 30 days, if they haven't, that's when we officially take the property.
Okay, but you have already tax acquired the property because you have sent them a tax acquire, right?
That's true.
You just extended it like a gratitude, so to speak. Obviously, very good for us to be able to have their property back. But in that transaction, you're going to have to get a quitclaim deed to allow them to have their property back. So which in turn, right now, it should be deemed your property. Is that correct?
I just got the data today on which properties it was. Some of them are properties with people living and some aren't. And getting ready for the meeting and trying to get my minutes, my notes out to you people, which was barely, I hope some of you all got it. I don't know if you did, it was that late. But when I saw the listing, that was the first thing that came to my mind, is that we up to the latest standards? And this was kind of a result of attorneys in a way, but it was also a result of the state supporting it, because there was a lot of communities that were 7, 8, and 9 years into foreclosure, not just 3, and they weren't doing anything with it. There were communities that had, well, there was one major community in the state of Maine that they had so many foreclosed pieces of property beyond the 3 years, they could only work on 50 of them at a time. So it's an area that we really have to get into and be sure we know and understand every piece of property, and that we've met with our insurance companies if there's any in violation to cover exactly what you're talking about.
Okay, thank you. And the other thing is, I don't mean to sound like a broken record, but I hear Bud talking about Tom helping. Have we appropriately put Tom on payroll to cover us as far as workers' comp and liability?
Without getting legal and everything else, dealing with people and not being in executive session, I will say that that is something that we definitely have to work on, and basically the fair wage statement and all this type of stuff, because you can't do what you used to be able to do all the time. And there's ruling even on your employees, whether they're hourly or salary. There's a lot of rulings out there now that probably were never really meant to impact little small world America, but they do. And what I intend to do once we get some of this done in the budget passed is to verify how much we are in line with the laws that are out there that maybe came in and nobody ever even knew it, because a lot of times we don't even know they're there till all of a sudden somebody in some town gets caught with it. And I could keep you up all night telling you examples, I know of that. So give me the time. What I'd like to ask of the board is each one of you to kind of scribble down your top 10 priorities. And I'd like to not have top 50. I'd like to be able to come to where you think I should be putting my most effort. And I'll probably have the same idea, and we could sit down just like with the budget and say, okay, rather than wind up with a meeting like this where somebody says, well, you voted to do this last year. There's probably good excuses why we didn't do things, because other priorities listed. But I'd like to be able to at least have a list of what I'm not getting done and what we as the board are not getting done. So when somebody comes to a meeting and they want to tear us apart because we never do anything right, that we have the facts and figures in hand, not just thoughts. Maybe it's just so many years of being used as the little ducks that crawl back and forth at the gallery at the carnival and people shoot at it. A lot of it comes from the changes in government. And I think we can provide a better education to the public that we're doing a lot more than they really realize. And in this pandemic case, that's a full-time job in itself if you didn't do anything else that you did out there. So I'm hoping that the majority of people in the town understand that your decisions weren't made because you just wanted to spoil the party and the things that you're doing. And that's why my message on the opening of the town meeting at the town hall next Thursday is I really want people to understand that we didn't cause this problem. We had to live with it. So don't come in and start yelling at my clerks because they can't get the cars registered fast enough when there's a line of 20 people placed at every 6 feet. And so hopefully we'll have some patience out there. And if I have to stand in the driveway and do it myself, I will, because I know if you haven't heard, there's a big thing at the state now on 16-year-olds who have completed all the stuff, getting their license when they finally open that up. And there's more kids that need to go for the license than there is time to do them. So that's what I put in the unintended consequences. And we will do the time. And I may even, if it's bad enough, may even talk about is there a chance that we can switch some hours and maybe we do some longer days to take some of the people that are working and offset some days. I don't know that yet, but I've seen, having been in Florida, what happens when all of a sudden the public's allowed to come back out. In some places it hasn't been pretty, and I hope it's not going to have that type of problem. Thank you.
Well, I guess what my question was, I guess we get kind of sidetracked there, but we made a motion to make sure he was on payroll before he started work. It was given to direction. So obviously he's working. has gone against our direction. I just want them to be put on payroll like we made the motion to do. I guess that was my
Right.
question more than anything.
Yeah, and I know that, I thought Vicky told us that he was put on payroll. I thought she made that at the last meeting.
Maybe so. I thought that we gave her direction and that was going to be what she was going to do. I just wanted to make sure that it was done before our liability is what I'm asking.
Right. All right, he'll check on it.
Yeah, I apologize. You mentioning that in our discussion was the first time it had been brought to my attention, and I don't blame Vicky because it wasn't certainly one of the priority questions in my mind. So I'll have that answer first thing in the morning. And if not, I'll have the resolution for you.
That's fine. Thank you. That's it for me. Well,
Okay, what did I do now? I don't remember where I was.
Chris.
So Tad did it, so now it's Chris's turn.
Okay, I understand we're opening the town office Tuesday. What is our, do we have all employees working their regular schedules and coming to work now, or where are we at as far as that goes?
I believe we have everybody working. We have spacing. We're trying to do everything that we're supposed to do in safety reasons. And that's why we're going to get together with anybody that wants to help. And we're going to put our own shields in before next Tuesday to meet the requirements for the office. I think we've kind of agreed that we're going to just do it ourselves and put something together that we don't have to worry about it falling down. And I was kind of hoping after this meeting that tomorrow sometime, anybody that wants to participate, we could get everybody together. And like I said, I don't mind. I'm not, my father, if he was alive, would tell you I'm not great with a hammer, but I'm certainly can hold something while you hammer the nails and bolt the screws. So I think that's the only thing we've got left at the town office. And I don't know of anybody that isn't working their full schedule.
No, the librarians are in. Doug has been asked to come in. So as far as I know, the highway has been working. So I think everybody's back where they're supposed to be, even though like with Doug, he may be in the building up there working on stuff on the internet, or he may be out to Trafton or whatever, but they've all been asked to come back to work. Yes.
Okay. Have we got a plan together to look at opening back up playgrounds or posting playgrounds that they're open but won't be sanitized or anything along those lines?
Well, the signs were put down there to let people know that it is not sanitized and that they are at their own risk if they are using it. That's my understanding, that those signs were posted down there and out at Trafton, because out at Trafton, they were trying to keep them out of there. And every time they went out, there was a bunch of kids there playing on the stuff. So
when I went out to Trafton, I see that there's a big snow fence around it.
They had to do that because of that. That's what I'm saying. That was the only way they could control it. But even then, the kids are climbing over the fence.
So why are we not posting it the same way as the one downtown?
To be legal, and I haven't looked at the postings, to be legal, you have to have all the affiliating laws that deal with it on the sign. You can't just put up play at your own risk. Okay. And so I will check with those. I know that we're trying to do that to meet the intent of the law. There's some really tough issues on that, and I think we need to really look at them. And I've tried to prioritize best I can as I meet everybody and meet with the different department heads. And we talked about that when we were in there, is what can we do and what can't we do? And let me verify that tomorrow also on my list of things.
That sounds very good. I'm motivated to see us open things that we can within the law and within reason and within safety. And I just would like to see us moving in that direction.
What I want to look into is, I understand that due to the emergency, we might not have to have those items, go out and buy a sign with everything on it with all the legalities. I believe under the Emergency Act, we're allowed to have a little leeway for emergency take action, but I don't know that for certain yet. And I really hate to go out and buy an awful lot of signs that could take us a couple of weeks to get and then have it all go away and we don't need them. So it is on our list of things. I talked with the recreation director a bunch of items when he gave me the tour out there. And now that we're past this meeting, I intend to get with each one of the department heads again and have them take me through the rounds. So we'll see where that is and see what the governor's opinion is tomorrow on everything.
Great, that sounds good. And I look forward to finding out more as, you know, people's position have changed, kind of what they're doing, what their job consists of at this time, so that when we're asked the question, we can say, well, you know, we're working on grants, we're working on this, so that we can get through that and really maybe accomplish some great things in this odd time. So that's all I've got.
Yeah, that should be part of the manager's report. He should be getting that information, and then with his weekly report, he can put those comments in there for us to be directly asking that information, him to report back to us. I think that's the way it should be.
If you don't like a lot of information, you probably shouldn't have hired me, because if I survive living here with you folks without being fired for a year, you'll probably be telling me I'm giving you too much information. I'm coming out of my private sector life. There was no such thing as too much information. And when you went to a meeting, you could put on a big presentation and it was never enough. So I tend to be a little more, as you've all noticed that have had to spend an hour with me, a little more broader and trying to share everything. And I think you'll be happy with it. And if nothing else, you'll have the trust on a lot of times that if I've said we're going to get to it, there's too many things on my plate right now that need to have a schedule put on them to which one's the more priority. But as we unfold some of these and get moving along, I will have a list of everything that you people have ever had and an anticipated date that it will be done. And some things will move up the list and some will move down, but that's how I monitor my work schedule.
Just so you know, what we've requested in the past is that we get a monthly report from the departments as to what's been going on and so forth. And that's been helpful just so we understand what's going on in town. But the weekly report that we've been asking of the town manager might include some of that stuff, but more importantly, those items that are being worked on. And so we know that when people ask us, hey, we can tell them.
Maybe it's because I was a selectman for 6 years in a town that had some brutal situations, and I maybe learned on the other side, on this side of the table for a while. But public in the know cuts down a lot of the rumor mills. Yep. And the one thing I've done is, in our case, I know the step is, I want to hear from the department head. A lot of those, I mean, it's a case of getting the information. What I always did in my other jobs, you can have any way you want. They provided the report to me and I tied it into my report as a whole, so that that I knew the same thing that you did, and that it would be put in a good order. Now, if you're happy with what you got, it's not on my priority list to change it. But a lot of times department heads struggle with what their important things are and what they're not. And if nothing else, I'll make sure that they have the help from me if they have typing skill problems or whatever else, that somebody's got to put it together for them. And if you're understanding what I'm meaning, I think it's important that everybody gets the same piece of data all the time.
Yep. I have nothing. Is there anything under other?
Well, I got one quick question. I heard the town manager say, and I know we're ready to go home, so about the sign. We had gave direction about doing a design. We talked about it at a meeting, and they were going to come back and give us what the estimate of the sign was. Now the town manager said there's a loophole on the sign. Is the loophole with the to see how much the sign costs, or are they actually making it?
Okay, maybe I'm not talking the same sign.
For Welcome to Trafton.
I'm talking about signs where you have something that is keep off of this,
Yeah,
and there's a
enter
law.
at your own risk type
No,
thing.
no, no,
And
no.
enter at
I'm
your own
talking
risk.
about- I'm talking about, we were talking about Trafton. He talked about Boulevard Graphics. That must be the same sign that we're getting for Trafton, correct?
My understanding is there was a request for a sign before I gave here, and that there's something out to quote on it at this
Yeah.
time. I might have typed it wrong, but
Okay, I didn't hear that part. You said that there was a problem with it. And that's what I was curious about.
It
That's all.
says, as for the sign, we are waiting for word from Boulevard Graphic, and we need to follow up on it, which we will do tomorrow. That's what he said.
I didn't hear. Thank you.
yeah, there's two separate sign instances. We might have had a little mix in the communication, but that's what's in the report, what was just read.
Okay, that's fine. Thank you.
Anything else? Okay, we need a motion to approve warrants 73 and 74.
So moved.
It's been moved, second. Any discussion on?
Warrant 74, it says we paid the city of Saco for police vehicle maintenance.
I never caught that. Yeah.
It wasn't vehicle maintenance. That's what we had to, what happened was with that one that the police department, the vehicle that they got through surplus actually came through Saco because they got the bid on, I mean, they got the acceptance of it. And then what happened was they turned it down, but since they had already issued it, we had to go through them to bring it up here.
Okay.
So it really wasn't maintenance, it was the actual transfer.
So to speak. Okay. And the light bar and everything is for that, obviously the same vehicle. I would assume. And the other vehicles, my understanding that they're gonna give, the other SUV we're gonna use for, the pickup was for first responders, the SUV was for town employees, correct?
That's what it's supposed to be. That's what the chief has told me.
Okay. Thank you.
Any further discussion? All in favor then? Tad?
Aye.
Jimmy?
Aye.
Chris?
Aye.
Fred?
Yes.
And I'm a yes, so it's unanimous. So motion to adjourn.
So
So moved.
Been moved, is there a second? Been moved by two people.
Second. Whatever it is.
They're both seconding.
I'll second. Fred can move.
There you go. Okay, all in favor then? Just say aye.
Aye.
Any negatives? We are adjourned. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Do you take the batteries out of these? No. Oh, okay, I didn't know.
What it is back in March, before this pandemic started, we had a number of these die.
Okay.
So I asked to get some new batteries. We haven't gotten them, so I keep bringing them in, just so that we're covered, just in case.
It's,
good job being those all.
what is the camera television setup? I presume we can broadcast
The
live.
camera is set up like right now, we're
Yeah.
live on Community Channel.
Okay. And what is the television?
I don't know. It's been there for a few years.
The
but-
television at one time, we used it in meetings. So when we went in executive session, we looked and make sure that we're not live.
Okay, that's a good idea. With all the microphones and everything else, because the new world is dropping mics.